Our psycho mailman would literally pee in a bottle and then throw it at people that he didn't like, resulting in one brave kid from my neighborhood getting revenge in a way that this mailman will truly never forget. Here's what happened. Okay, so this one happened a few years ago. Our mail carrier changed and the new guy, who we will call Dave, was an absolute jerk. He would literally walk on flower beds and was really rude to people. But the real kicker was Dave would pee in a bottle, and if he was in a bad mood, that bottle would be thrown in someone's garden. And if you tell him to throw the bottle in the trash, he would throw it at you. Dave was the son of the postmaster, who we will call Bob, an older guy of the boys will be boys mindset, and best friends with the local sheriff, who we will call Steve. If you talk to Bob about his son, it would be nothing but excuses. He's a foster kid, he's had a hard life, and on and on. If you went to Steve, then he would just say, oh, boys will be boys, even though Dave is in his 30s. Or he would say that Postmaster Bob is dealing with it personally. Well, one day in the middle of summer, the neighborhood kids got to see Mailman Dave being his usual sunny self. It seems like Dave was mean to them too. The kids were out playing with their super soakers, and one of them had this really high-powered thing which sent the water a good 10 feet or more. And the kid who owned it, who we will call Orion, was a really good shot. It was a lovely day, the sun was out, and I'm out back putting out dinner. Suddenly, there's this blood-curdling scream from Dave, and the whole neighborhood comes running to see what happened. It turns out that Orion had loaded his super soaker with one of Dave's pee bottles, and topped it off with a can of Red Bull. So now Dave was covered in this disgusting, sticky pee and sugar mess, which was starting to stink to high heaven. One of my neighbors offered to let Dave use her shower, but he ran off to another house, grabbed the hose, and turns it on himself. So now Dave is sticky, pee-soaked, and wet. He ditched everything in the street and eventually just ran off. Steve and Bob went walking the street that afternoon, and we'd all not seen anything, of course, and Bob had the bright idea of asking Orion, who told him exactly what we all thought of Dave and how he was acting, and it was done in the way only a bright-eyed 12-year-old truly can do. Bob and Steve then cornered Orion's dad. Is this your son? Do you know what he did? Well, without missing a beat, Orion's dad fired back, well, Sheriff Steve, don't you always say boys will be boys? We never saw Dave again, but Orion's birthday party was huge that year. And honestly, all I can say is God bless that kid, because Dave absolutely deserved it. Oh my God, it blows my mind that people like Dave actually exist in the world. Like, think about it, this guy was throwing his own urine at people. That's seriously like some crazy behavior, and he absolutely should be in jail for that. But on the other end of that, I know plenty of kids who would have the bravery to step up and be like, oh, okay, you want to throw urine at everybody in the neighborhood? Guess what? I'm gonna do the same thing to you. Oh, and by the way, it's your own that you threw at us earlier. Like, seriously, that's so gross. So yeah, this story is great because Dave absolutely deserved to get shut down. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My parents absolutely hate my boyfriend no matter what I say or do. And despite the fact that he is perfect for me, they still think he's mistreating me and that I should get away from him. And at this point, I'm honestly so frustrated that I just don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, so I'm 25 years old and he's 28. I have some mental health issues and I moved back home around 4 years ago. I work full time and I pay my bills, but I don't pay rent. I do have some debt, which really concerns me. Before I met him, I was almost full time watching my nephew and spending time with my parents. I had some boyfriends in between, but it just didn't pan out. Now, I love my boyfriend, who we will call Jay for the sake of the story. He truly is like finding a missing piece, but we did have an argument which resulted in a breakup and me crying. He then apologized and we agreed to part ways. 3 days later, I said no and we got back together. Since then, he has been in therapy and we've been talking and communicating a ton. And the both of us truly want to marry each other. He's in school to work on HVAC and I'm taking another license so that I can make more money. Now, my parents hated me getting back with him, citing every reason one could think of, going as far as telling me that he's toxic and mistreating me, even though he isn't. I do sometimes drive and we do a more 50-50 relationship where he opens every door for me and cooks for me and all over really just spoils me. My mom even hated his Christmas present to me, but they were all very special and well thought out gifts. She's mad it wasn't expensive things, which I just don't care about. And I don't believe they've ever liked any of my boyfriends, to be completely honest. Easter came along and I made plans for Jay and I to go to the aquarium. Flash forward and my mom's pissed I didn't spend it at home. I stayed the night at Jay's place and I come home to be yelled at and told that they just care and that he's mistreating me and how ungodly staying the night is. But I had a great time filled with lots of laughing and learning more about Jay. We've been together about 7 months and there's been nothing toxic or manipulative going on as they tell me, but at the end of the day, I'm not paying rent, so their say goes. I feel like they don't trust me and don't want me with him, and ultimately I feel like I'm failing them. What should I do? So from the sounds of it, it doesn't seem like your boyfriend's that bad at all. Based on what you've described and you've shared with everybody, he sounds like a pretty good boyfriend, so I'm kind of confused as to why your parents don't like him. In fact, it really seems like they just don't want you to date at all, which is like really annoying. Like, are you kidding me right now? The original poster is 25. You can't expect them to stay single forever and live under your roof, right? So this all sounds super weird, and hopefully this is able to get worked out in some kind of way, because it does sound like you have a good relationship. And I would hate to have your parents ruin that, all because they have some weird bias that they refuse to explain. My entitled psycho coworker gets a healthy taste of karma after she decides to mouth off at the wrong time, resulting in a patient slapping her right in the face. Here's what happened. Okay, many years ago, I worked as a contract nursing assistant for a hospital. One of my jobs as agency CNA was I had to manage a room called the restraint-free room. Mostly it was because I was a big, tall dude, but also because I was agency, and the other CNAs hated it, and the full-timers had their clique, and agency just wasn't in that. The reason it was called the restraint-free room is because the facility had strict rules on restraints and only used them as absolute last resort, preferring to put them all in a small room with someone watching them and redirecting them. But sometimes you'd get someone in there that just pissed off the nurses. Well, one night I got one of these guys. He did not want to wear his CPAP machine, which by the way helps him with his sleep apnea, and he probably needs it. But he hates it because it's bulky, the straps suck, and he could not toss and turn in it without waking up. That, plus being stuck in a hospital for 2 weekends, and being stove up just drove him nuts. In my training as a CNA, I was always told a patient can deny treatment and go AMA except in certain cases, like they are in danger to themselves or others, or they can't make decisions because of some legal or medical condition. Being of somewhat right mind after talking with him, he had the right to not wear the thing or have his concerns about it addressed. I did try to convince him to wear it. It is my job after all. But when he got agitated, I said he had a right to do it, and I mentioned that I'd have to chart this. Well, he agreed and we were cool. And honestly, this should have been the end of it, but trust me, it gets way worse. I chart that the patient is refusing to wear their CPAP, and a nurse is informed. Most places I had worked, it was no problem. Someone with a higher pay grade can handle it or ignore it. No need for it to be a big deal. But then a nurse practitioner, the nurse in charge, and the floor nurse I was under enter the room at like 4 in the morning and flick the lights on. And the nurse practitioner is pissed off. For those unaware of the culture of medicine, think of it like hierarchies of tribes, each with its own hierarchy and shared language. In nursing, a nurse practitioner is only rivaled by an anesthesia nurse, even outranking nurse managers, almost on par with lesser doctors, but not in the doctor tribe. And they have enormous autonomy and perks. At the absolute bottom are nursing assistants. While essential, we are expendable, and we do the dirtiest work and spend the most time with patients. She then starts berating the floor nurse, then looking in my direction. These people, meaning nursing assistants, which also means she's talking to me, are supposed to make sure the patient is wearing the CPAP. It is their job, and your job is to make sure they do this. Are you just sitting here being lazy? Now, all of this is in front of the patient, of course, along with another poor patient that just kept falling out of bed, waking him up. I then look at her and I say, "Ma'am, you are a nurse practitioner with years of experience and education. If you could show me your technique to do this, I'd be much in your debt. After all, CNA school is only a month-long school, so would you mind?" The nurse practitioner then grabs the CPAP and goes over. "Here, Mr. Whatever, you need this." And then she tries to put it on him. It was then that he smacks her straight in the face. And I think that slap could be heard all the way to the nurse's station. The nurse practitioner's glasses went flying. In a flurry of activity, code called and a squad of other CNAs and a nurse with a large dose of emergency tranquilizer all march into this room. They poke him in the butt and he's on a 5-point restraint and out of my room because, well, of course, there's no restraints in the restraint-free room. I turn to the nurse practitioner after the chaos. I say to her, "If one of your RNs wrote non-compliant, you would not say they are lazy. You would respect their assessment. Why should this be different for a CNA? When I chart this, I don't do this because I want to lay out. I do it to inform the proper people while making sure my patient is safe and that I am safe." She then looked up, still probably seeing stars. She nodded and then apologized. And you know what? I never had crap from her the rest of my tenure there, and even had me fix a laptop that she had with a simple repair. So it goes to show you that not all revenge has to be malicious, and that sometimes it can be educational. Okay, as someone who's worked in the healthcare industry at some point in their life, my God, I love this story. Seriously, this is so satisfying because I've dealt with people like this and it is so obnoxious, dude. Literally, you're just trying to do your job and they freak out and try to be like, "Oh my God, I can't believe you. You're not doing your job. You're just sitting here being being lazy. And it's like, dude, I don't know what to tell you. Obviously, I can't scream at you because I'll probably lose my job. So I'm going to be professional and let the patient take care of it themselves. And I know for a fact, I would have gone to the storage closet right after that, or some kind of private space, and laughed my butt off after she got slapped in the face. Because if this nurse practitioner is anything like some of the snobby coworkers I've dealt with, then my God, does she deserve that smack right in the jaw. So honestly, good for you for getting this revenge. Like, this really is so funny to me because this lady absolutely deserved it. And anybody who calls their coworkers lazy all because you're now forced to do your job, in my opinion, is the actual lazy person in the office and nobody else. Am I the jerk for cutting off my parents after they treated me like garbage for literally my entire childhood? Because now, after years of being no contact and after going through therapy, I reached out to my mom and she's asking me to forgive her for the way she treated me. And at this point, I'm not sure what to do. Here's what's going on. Okay, I want to say that I kind of know the answer to this one, but there is something not sitting right with me. Let's get started. I'm the son of two emotionally immature parents. My dad was a total dictator and totally acted like it. He was violent, angry, and vindictive. And mom used me as her parent, literally reversing the roles. And the only constant growing up was instability. So loads of awful situations, locked constantly in a state of freeze and do nothing else. Fortunately, I got an education, I left the country I came from, and I made myself a new life in Norway. I'm super happy with that, and I'm now in therapy, and I've been going on for that for about 3 years now, and I'm working on all the issues I had growing up. I'm not dependent on them anymore, and that has affected our relationship. Their role has become less and less, and I haven't had a relationship with my parents for the past 4 years. In addition, our relationship got a no-contact status as I had a period of depression that made me do therapy. Now, for the past 3 years, I've been working through all the baggage they left me, and because of that, I had a tough time healing. I've been getting better and lately thought that I should tell them, but I honestly felt like they deserve an explanation. Well, my mom at least. So I sent her a long message explaining my reasons for estrangement and how I'm not mad at her, but I can't act like nothing happened, and let her use me as her emotional regulator. I told her that she and my dad have not been nice to me and have given me major issues that I've been working through these past years. Her response was basically to say, well, can't you just forgive me? Okay, I've not been nice to you, but we've lived together for 22 years. Can't you at least forgive me for that? I don't need that much from you. Can't you just send me like 3 voicemails in a year so I can feel good? I mean, she's not asking for too much, but I don't see this woman as someone who has been kind to me. She has done her best, I get it, and I have empathy for it, but I can't act like nothing has happened. I feel bad that she is so dependent on me, but I don't want a babysitter. So truly, am I the jerk for denying such a small ask of her? Because right now, I seriously am not sure what to do. No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. This sounds really tricky. Like, I can't imagine going through that growing up and then being asked to, like, I don't know, pick up the pieces of a relationship that you never had. Because just my like basic instinct here, it doesn't seem like she's actually sorry. Like, if anything, she's just trying to be like, oh, just forgive me, it's fine, just like don't worry about it. We've lived together for 22 years, can't you just forgive me and get over it? But it's like, lady, why don't you apologize to your son? Like, you're completely missing the point of all of this. This would have been a great opportunity for her to be like, I understand and I'm sorry for what I did. But instead she's like, oh, just forgive me, I want voicemail so I can feel good. Like, clearly she's just completely not changed at all and she still expects like the same things from you. So no, you're not the jerk. I completely understand where you're coming from because it sounds like your mom and your dad have just not grown in the slightest. My entitled in-laws refused to tell me until after the fact that my father had passed away. So I decided to get some petty revenge by stealing my dad's ashes and telling them that if they wanted it back, then they would have to apologize to me. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened last year and honestly, it's probably the pettiest thing I've ever done. Let's get started right at the beginning. My biological dad was never really around when I was a kid. When he left, most of his side of the family went with him. The only ones who stayed in contact were my aunt and my grandfather, both of whom have since passed away. I had an okay relationship with my half-sister growing up, and that was about it. When I was 16 years old, I finally met some of my dad's family, and even then, he still didn't show up. I built a relationship with my grandmother around that time, but I didn't actually meet my dad until I was 20 years old, and even then, it was only over the phone and online. Fast forward to last year, and I was 29 years old when he passed away, and you know what? Nobody told me. My sister even drove 10 hours to visit him in the hospital while he was on life support for 2 days. Meanwhile, I found out after he died. You know, when his ex-wife, not my mom, but just some random woman, messaged me and offered her condolences. And that was how I learned that he was gone. It really hurt. I had spent most of my life wanting to meet him, and it turned out he had moved back to the area a year before he died. He had a relationship with my sister, but apparently me and our younger sister didn't make the cut. So like any reasonable person, I did a little digging. I found out which mortuary had him and gave them a call. They told me my grandmother and sister said that they had no way of contacting contacting me, which is hilarious considering they're both on my Facebook where I'm extremely active. And my sister used to call me at least once a week before all of this. The mortuary needed a majority of his children to consent to cremation. So I called my younger sister and together we went down there and signed the new paperwork. We arranged it so that the ashes would come straight to me. They said they couldn't give me the urn that had already been purchased as it had to go to whoever paid for it. So basically my grandmother paid for an urn and was handed an empty one. And now my dad's ashes are in the back of my closet. I handed out some to my nieces and nephews, and my younger sister wanted nothing to do with him, and honestly, I don't blame her. I told my grandmother and sister they could apologize first if they ever wanted to make things right. Well, there's now been dead silence, and honestly, I have no regrets about the situation. Wow, that is one way to get revenge. Holy crap. You literally went down there with your sister and said, oh, we're stealing the remains of my father. We're taking these ashes as collateral, and if you want them back, then guess what? You have to apologize. And please, don't misunderstand. I'm not chuckling at the fact that this happened at all, but I'm more laughing at the fact that your extended family act like jerks and now they have to deal with it. Because first of all, they could have easily told you that your dad passed away even though you didn't have a good relationship with him. They could have just messaged you on Facebook and all of this would have been fine. You could have moved on and it would have been completely over and everybody's happy. But they decided to be weird, so you got a lot weirder, and I'm not gonna lie, this is way more than I would ever do in my own life. But either way, good for you because I think you sent a very clear message to these people. I recently moved back in with my parents and I'm really struggling to set any kind of boundaries with these people, as I seriously feel like my entire life is under a microscope, and at this point, I really don't know what to do. Here's what's going on. I'm a 27-year-old female and I moved back in with my parents a year ago. Trust me, I would love to have my own place as that would solve all my issues, but I'm paying off all my debt I ended up in from my previous relationship. I'm in school as well while I work a full-time job that's literally 45 plus hours a week. I'm putting most of my money to paying off my debt. I still have a car, insurance, phone bill, and groceries, so I literally just can't afford my own place. Obviously, I no longer have any privacy or space anymore, and my main thing is I live in my parents' place for free. I used to have to pay rent before I moved out at 20, so I know if I give them any type of attitude, they will bring up the fact that I live there for free. I work a lot, I'm in online school, I buy my own groceries, clean up after myself and my cats, but I've been struggling to get back on a routine for the last year. Since moving back, obviously, I can't do the things I did living on my own, like cleaning when I want, having friends over, and smoking cigarettes or the herb, if you know what I mean. I can't even smoke in the backyard, I would have to leave the property. I work the same night shift I've been working for the past 6 years, and my parents are retired and they're always home. I started sleeping with earplugs so they don't usually wake me up, but it's the constantly coming into my room while I'm sleeping, waking me up to do chores or favors, always on me about my spending, as I have to buy my own groceries, but they always tell me I'm spending too much, and always having any conversation turn into a lecture because they don't like or agree with anything I do. They tell me I don't spend enough time with them, and then I do try to, but I am busy a lot. And they are always, and I mean always, going through my stuff. They're going through my mail. They are very, very opinionated. So anytime I do anything, there's always some kind of comment. For example, they hate coffee. So every time I make coffee, they come into the kitchen to tell me the smell is gross and that I shouldn't be making coffee. I know this stuff is little and I've ignored it, but my God, I swear they've gotten worse since I moved out. I've tried multiple times in several ways to kindly say, look, I just got done with a 12-hour shift. I really don't want to sit in the living room with you and watch the news or talk about how much in debt I am. I just want to sit in my room in silence. Or I'll say, I'm trying to work out and do my yoga, so can you please not stand in the doorway and stare at me? By the way, I'm not a morning person, so I usually don't even talk to them when I wake up. And I've also mentioned that I'm not a morning person, so just don't even acknowledge me. But it's always, oh, someone's being a brat today. Also, I only see my boyfriend on the weekends as he does live about an hour away, and sleepovers are not allowed under their roof. So usually we just want to sit in my room and relax or go on a day trip, but then it's like, oh, well, we want to get to know your boyfriend, so you need to sit in the living room with us. Wait, why are you avoiding us? And every single time I get told I'm being a brat and I have an awful attitude. I make bad decisions, I'm stupid. Like at this point, I just don't know what to say to them. I mean, I barely even talk to them nowadays because I don't want the lecture and I don't have the energy to fight. It's hard because they are nice people and I know they mean well, but it's just getting so frustrating. And at this point, I honestly do not know what to do. Okay, this all really sucks and I totally understand where you're coming from, but the one thing that lights my hair on fire is the fact that they're going through your mail. Like, dude, that's not allowed. That's so illegal. I really hope they're not opening up your mail because that would be a serious violation of privacy. If by some weird twist of fate they are doing that, dude, I would get a PO box today and never look back. I would reroute all my mail to that and be like, okay, this is now my mailbox. box. You people cannot look at it. It also makes me wonder if you and your boyfriend can figure something out. I know that's a stretch because it sounds like money's tight, but I wonder if the two of you could live together and you could be like, okay, well, screw both of our parents. Let's go do something on our own. Because legitimately, what you're describing right now sounds like my own personal nightmare. For me, in case you don't know already, because I've probably said this a bunch of times on the channel, I am a very private person. I love my privacy. I love my own space and having my own place to like do things. So having anybody invade that in some kind of like intrusive way would seriously be like, wait a second, what are you doing? Get out of my house. So I can't imagine having parents like that and being like, oh my God, they're going through my mail. They're going through my room. They're trying to make me sit in the living room so they can interrogate my boyfriend. Like, no, I don't think so. That's not happening. And by the way, in case you're wondering, that's a completely normal response to be like, wait, no, I don't want that. What are you doing? Because they're being super intrusive and weird, and I don't blame you for being upset. So sure, I know that you're going through a lot and you got a lot of debt that you're figuring out, but hopefully some way, by some miracle, you can move out of there and be back on your own. Because your current living environment just doesn't sound fun, and I know I would hate that to like the highest degree. My entitled mother-in-law demands more and more money from all of her sons, claiming that they never give her any money and that she's gonna starve and go hungry if she doesn't get $50 a month from each of her sons. But after watching this on the sidelines, I finally decided that enough was enough, setting the record straight for everybody involved, and finally saying that my mother-in-law is incredibly greedy. Here's what happened. So my mother-in-law has asked for money since the first day I met her. She was a stay-at-home mom for most of her life and had 4 sons with 2 different men. Both ex-husbands have passed away, so now she reaches out to her sons for money. My boyfriend and I live together and have been together for 2 years. In that time, he has paid her cell phone bill regularly, given her $500, sent her random amounts of money between $50 to $100, bought her things for her home like a toaster, a new comforter, etc., and even brought her food. And most of the time, she doesn't even say thank you. Now, my boyfriend and I are comfortable, but we are not rich. I'm a freelance tutor and he's a security guard. We are tight, but we make do. For a year, my mother-in-law has been pushing him to agree to give her $50 a month. She thinks if each son gives her $50, then she can have $200 a month. But I just don't understand the need for this extra money. The government helps pay for her apartment, and she gets Social Security and pension. Between her 4 sons, they pay for her home goods, and another son pays for her hair and her nail appointments, while another takes her out to eat all the time. But no matter what she receives, she always insists on getting more. Now, fast forward, and yesterday was my boyfriend's birthday, and today is my mother-in-law's birthday. Because they are so close in days, and we both work today, we brought her a birthday cake last night to celebrate both birthdays together. Now, she had prepared nothing for my boyfriend, not even a card, but was happy to accept the cake that we brought her. Things were actually okay until we finished eating, and she brought up money again. She said that she complained to her friend about how she has 4 sons and how only one of them helps her, which is so untrue, since I have a record at this point of everything that anyone has bought her. She said her friend would be calling my sons because apparently $50 is nothing to us, but it's a lot to her. So I decided to ask, well, when you decided to have 4 children, what was your plan for when you got to this age? She literally looked at me and said that she didn't have one. So I said, oh, okay, and why do you think $50 is nothing to your son? How can anyone say $50 is nothing to anyone with the cost of living these days? She responded back by saying, yes, but would you let your mother go hungry? But I responded by saying, no, I wouldn't, but your sons haven't let you go hungry. And I'm even actually really surprised that on your son's birthday, when he brought you a cake on his birthday, actually came to your house and you didn't get him anything, not even a card. You're just so comfortable sitting here making him feel bad for not giving you money. Now, I looked to my boyfriend, but he did not stop me, so I kept going. So I said, at 31 years old, do you think your son and I don't want to start our own family? But we know we can't do that economically, and we don't want to burden our kids with that in the future. Well, when I said that, she lost it. And as a result, I'm now apparently banned from the family, even though my boyfriend is 100% on my side. So honestly, am I the jerk for telling my mother-in-law exactly how it is? What should I do? Wow, the mother-in-law in this story is a really terrible mother. You're telling me that she had no plan for retirement at all? Like she wasn't setting any money aside or anything, and her plan was just to try and like mooch off of her sons for the rest of her life? Like that is really irresponsible, and that's awful for your kids to have to deal with. But you know what? It really seems like the original poster said what everybody was thinking, because I totally agree with them. This mother-in-law is gonna sit there and act like she's starving, and yet she's definitely not starving at all. Like she has all of her needs met by literally all of her sons, and yet she's still begging for more, acting like she has nothing left in her life and that she has no money coming in from the government or from from her pension. Like, she sounds super entitled and really selfish, and I don't blame you for saying exactly what needs to be said, because this mother-in-law absolutely had it coming, and it was only a matter of time before you or somebody else set her straight. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for asking my neighbor to shut their doors when their infant is having a meltdown? Here's what happened. So I live in an apartment which is on one of two buildings on the same block of land. The other building has an apartment with a young family with 2 children. One is about 3 years old, and they have a new infant of less than a year. During COVID lockdowns, the 3-year-old was an infant and he cried all the time. The noise would reverberate between the buildings into all the apartments on our side, and it really upset everybody in the building, but we all just kind of let it slide. Now they have a new infant that, just like the other one, is constantly crying, whining, and moaning at all hours, but they keep their doors and windows open so the sound travels straight into our apartments. I get along famously with all the neighbors, and they've all said they're getting fed up with the noise as well. We agreed that if they just shut their doors while the infant is shrieking, it would take some of the edge off of the noise. The other thing is that they let their kids stay up very late. It'll be 11 o'clock p.m. and I will still hear the 3-year-old banging on toys and the infant chiming in with an attention-seeking whine. So it seems like the kids are probably not sleeping a normal schedule and are irritable throughout the day, hence they are crying all the time. Now, for further backstory, I've been recovering from a brain tumor and I am more sensitive to noise than I would be normally. So when a kid shrieks, I really feel it deeply. I'm also getting my career back on track and working from home, and I can't count the number of times the little demon spawn has screamed uncontrollably while I was on a video call or a regular phone call. In general, all our neighbors are generally pretty good about speaking up when something is bothering them. I mean, we don't do the passive-aggressive thing, and we all really appreciate directness. So I crossed paths with a mother of the kids the other day, and I was very polite and friendly. I then told her that I know it must be tough with young kids at home, but I then asked her if she'd be kind enough to shut the doors for times when the kids are screaming, and then reopen them when they settle down. Well, when I said that, she just sort of looked at me really awkwardly and was like, okay then, which really translated to, how dare you ask me that? Now, I've been hesitant to make a bigger deal out of this, even though it's single-handedly disrupting the vibe across 17 other apartments. I honestly don't have an issue with the kids, because I know kids are gonna cry. The issue is that the parents don't seem to care about other residents and are not interested in working with any of us. So honestly, am I the jerk for even suggesting a solution to the mom? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk, and honestly, I think you did this the nice way. You very easily could have been petty and gone to like the apartment manager or someone over the building and been like, hey, this lady's keeping her windows open and it's bothering all of us when her kids cry. And then you could have just gotten them in trouble that way instead of like coming to them personally. Like, there's a lot of ways this could have gone, and I think you picked the nicest option. And here's the thing, it's not just you that's complaining about this. It is literally, what, 17 other apartments basically saying the same thing? They all feel the exact same way that you do, and they really want this lady to shut the window and the doors and just shut up in general. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. This is something that needed to be said because her negligence is bothering the entire neighborhood. An entitled customer comes in right at closing, taking as much time as he can to shop our store, and then taking forever to get his stuff and get out. And I'm honestly so annoyed, and I really hope I never have to deal with this ever again. Here's what happened. So I had a guy come in last minute last night at the convenience store I work closing shifts for. Usually it's not an issue. They're usually in and out really fast, but I was literally fetching the key to lock the doors when the guy in question came in. So I have to wait for him to finish before I can shut down. But again, I don't think much of it because usually last minute stragglers are really quick. But unfortunately, this guy absolutely was not. Between him practically inspecting every single item we had on our shelves, as well as him saying, wait, I need to get more things, over 3 times after coming to the register, and then wanting to keep chatting after he had paid and had his stuff bagged, and despite me being non-receptive, it was almost another 15 minutes past closing time. I mean, I've done everything I could to not give him a reason to keep chatting, or even trying to be polite and just nudge him out the door, but it was all to no avail. He then went on to ask me, so what time do you close anyways? And I responded by saying that we were supposed to close 15 minutes ago, hoping that he would finally get the message and get out. But this guy just laughed, and then he kept talking and said, oh, you guys close early. When I worked retail, we would stay open until midnight. And then he tried to go on a tangent about how things were when he was a retail worker. I ended up having to be blunt, straight up telling him that if he's he's done shopping, then I'll need him to leave so we can finally close. He, of course, got sour after that because, of course, it's terrible customer service. It's small and mostly inconvenient, but my God, it is so infuriating when people know that it's past or close to closing time and they still want to hang out and waste my time. Yeah, I know exactly what the original poster is talking about here because I've experienced this myself. You have a customer that you really want to get out the door, but they're sitting there just being like, oh yeah, this is a great time to talk. Meanwhile, you're like really wanting to leave, like you really desperately want to go home. You've worked 12 hours and the last thing you want to do is deal with this idiot. And it seems like, at least in my experience, the more you talk to these people, the more they think, oh yeah, it's totally fine that I'm here right now holding you up. It's like, dude, it's midnight. I don't want to talk to you right now. I want to get in my car and go home and sleep because I got to open the next day. Like, are you kidding? So yeah, I totally understand where they're coming from, and I also cannot stand when customers act that way. Am I the jerk for refusing to house my cousin in my apartment after my extended family imposes and pretty much demands that he lives with me in New York City? Because right now I am very frustrated, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my cousin recently got into New York University, and I'm so proud of him. My mom told me when I invited her over for dinner a couple of weeks ago. She then brought up that he could live with me instead of dorming. She brought it up in a casual, joking manner, so I laughed and said that I can't live with that drama queen for the life of me. She shrugged it off and she didn't bring up the topic again that night. Almost 4 days later, I get a call from my aunt, and she reiterated what my mother said, and said that she was so grateful for what I was doing for my cousin. I went silent for a little bit, and then I asked her what she meant by that. My aunt said that I had agreed to take my cousin in and let him live with me for his academic career. Now, I was shocked at first, and I told her that I never agreed to that. She then said to me, I know, but he's your cousin. The least you can do is let him stay at your apartment. And now that I type this out, it does sort of seem innocent, but in that moment, it really angered me. I lost my cool and I told her that I don't owe anybody anything, and then I hung up the phone. Now, I will admit, I didn't handle that in the best manner, and I could have been a lot calmer, but I really don't want someone to live with me. I live by myself in a 2-bedroom apartment. I already pay a lot for rent and have a very tight budget for food. Even if his parents offer to pay for his expenses, such as food and transportation, I still wouldn't want him living with me. Shortly after my blow up with my aunt, a few of my family members began blowing up my phone, saying that I'm being selfish and jealous of my cousin's success. My uncle texted me that I'm ruining his son's life and ranted about how self-absorbed I am. Now, to be frank, I don't care what he or anyone else in my family tells me about this situation, and there's a reason I try to avoid them at family functions. What makes me wonder if I'm the jerk is when my mother said that I was being unfair and that I'll open my apartment door for one-night stands, but not for her own family. I told her that she can have a say in who I let in my apartment when she starts paying my rent, and as of right now, I'm contemplating blocking my mom as well. Part of me feels like I'm being a jerk, and the other part of me feels like it's my apartment, so I shouldn't be bullied into anything I don't want to do. I'm not mad at my cousin because he is a kid, but I'm really mad at everyone else in my family taking his parents and mom's side of the story. My dad has been very supportive of my decision and is reprimanding my mom and her family about the whole situation. So honestly, am I the jerk in this scenario? What should I do? You are not the jerk in this situation, and I think I would lose my mind if someone tried to be like, oh yeah, you're letting your cousin live with you. Especially if they didn't ask me ahead of time about that. Like if they just assumed that, oh, we're family, so I'm gonna let them in, then they've got a rude awakening coming their way. And I feel the exact same way. I wouldn't want someone living with me like that, especially if this is family that you actively try to avoid at family reunions. And based on the way they're acting, I don't blame you at all for not wanting anything to do with them. Here they are not getting exactly what they want, so they turn this all around on you, all because you said no to their imposition. Like if the aunt had called in and been like, hey, could you actually let my son stay with you, or something like that, I think there could have been more of a chance for some kind of dialogue between the original poster and their extended family, and we could have avoided this entire mess. But instead, they just assumed, oh yeah, you're gonna let him in there because we say so. Like that is super toxic, and there's no way I would ever let that fly if I was in your shoes. And it's just so beautiful, and it's like icing on the cake that everyone's trying to guilt trip you and gaslight you as if you're the problem here. But it's like, really? Are you kidding me right now? You're trying to force my cousin to live with me without asking me first. And you've got it right, by the way. You pay for rent in a 2-bedroom apartment in New York City. Like that's not cheap, that is really expensive, and there's no way I'm gonna let someone just move in with me all of a sudden. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. Anyone who says that you're the jerk is actually the jerk, and I don't blame you for wanting to distance yourself from this side of your family. I live with my my aunt and uncle for 3 months, and I literally could not stand their spoiled, rotten children, and I now hope I never have to deal with them ever again. Here's what happened. So I lived with my aunt and uncle for 3 months due to work changes, and they have 2 boys. One is 13 and the other is 6. And they have to be the most entitled, narcissistic, spoiled brats I have ever met. The 13-year-old is incredibly lazy. He doesn't clean up after himself, which leaves the parents to think the rest of us must clean their son's mess. He throws temper tantrums like a 2-year-old about not getting what he wants, and the one night, I came home late at 9:00 p.m. from work just to find my chargers and cords missing because he took my extension cord to use those for LED lights. Obviously, I took it back because I need to charge my phone for work tomorrow, and the next morning he started screaming and crying and breaking things because I unplugged his lights. And the 6-year-old is the devil reincarnated. I know he's just a kid, but frankly, I don't care about excuses that let children treat people like garbage. He goes through all my bags, my suitcases, my personal belongings to find money. He looks for candies, all of my books, and no matter what he finds, he just takes it. He opened up my makeup bag and squeezed out all the makeup. He took my toothbrush and covered it in toothpaste and put the protective cover back on. And when I complain about any of this, he nags that I don't share with him, as if he's entitled to everything in front of him. Then one day, when I was getting food to eat, he started yelling at me by screaming, "Don't eat my food! You're eating all my food!" Even though this food was not his in the first place. And then, to top it all off, he spat on me. He spits on people when he doesn't get what he wants, so I told his mother, and all she did was say, "Don't do it again." Then, the next day, they told me to buy him sweets to make it up to him, because apparently you have to buy his love. I mean, this was just pathetic parenting. They throw a fit even if you raise your voice at their kids too. He's just a little narcissist, and he even cried last night because I didn't say thank you to him for getting me a chocolate, even though I bought the chocolate for myself. I honestly can't stand these kids, and I hope I don't have to deal with them ever again. I'm gonna be the first one to say it, and maybe this is a mean take, but sometimes kids literally are the worst people on the planet. This is not a sweeping statement, so please don't take this the wrong way, but if you raise your kids wrong and they turn into these little monsters, then these are the type of people that are just so awful to deal with. Like, there's literally no reasoning with kids like these because they just throw a fit over anything and everything. They've never been told no their entire life. They think the world belongs to them, and God forbid you tell them no because they're gonna make your life a living nightmare. And worst of all, this is all learned behavior. This is reinforcement from the parents not doing their job. Like, if they just took the time to work out any of these bad habits and try to teach them to have responsibility and all this other stuff, then they really could have avoided all of this mess. Like, I can only imagine what the teachers of these kids must have to deal with on a daily basis. Especially the 6-year-old. The 6-year-old really makes my skin crawl because he's at that age where, like, literally you can't reason with him and you just can't have a conversation of any kind, and there's no like middle ground in the slightest, and without like some kind of punishment or like the parents getting involved, you will literally not get anything done around this child. So honestly, I think I speak for all of us when I say I hope you really don't live with him anymore, because that sounds like an absolute nightmare. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would seriously be miserable living under that roof. My husband keeps ruining my birthday, and today was no exception, as he invited my mom, who is very emotionally distant from me. And now I feel like my day is ruined and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for starters, today is my birthday, and I'm turning 41 years old. And my husband of 19 years can be a bit of a jerk. His awful behavior is few and far between though, and most of the time we get along, we love each other, he cleans up around the house, and he's ready to jump in and do whatever needs to get done with the kids. Generally, he is a good husband with some very bad qualities. Now, the problem arises when we try to resolve conflict, and he gets extremely defensive to the point of aggression. For example, last year on my birthday, I apparently didn't tell him clearly enough what I wanted to do while we planned the event, and he then ended up snapping at me and then refusing to speak to me, and I ended up crying and driving myself and our kids to the trampoline park, which is where we wanted to go in the first place. But this year I was clear. I said I wanted to do the pool or another type of adventure park by us, and this is a place that's similar to like Dave and Buster's, but there's also like a zip line. Well, when I said that, he said, "Oh, don't plan anything. He has a surprise for me." While I was out running a quick errand with my daughter today, he told me to come home because the surprise was almost there. And what was the surprise, you might be asking? It was the fact that he invited my mother over for the day. Now, my mother and I are not close. She is emotionally cold and distant, all the way to the point that she can be very rude to me, and he knows our relationship is unfulfilling at best and disappointing at worst. She will sometimes just pretend I'm not speaking and start talking talking to someone else while I'm mid-sentence. We don't spend time together, and my husband doesn't really like her either. And so far, he has spent the day giving us 20 minutes at the table having cake, and then he went to our hot tub alone, and now he's downstairs playing some video games. I'm now stuck up here with my mom, who will probably stay until bedtime. I feel like my day is ruined again, and I'm seething mad. In all fairness to him, he did buy me flowers and several pieces of Coach jewelry, even though I don't really wear jewelry, which he already knows that. I feel like he threw money at it, invited my mom to babysit me, so he can now do whatever he wants. I mean, how do I bring this up without causing a raging argument? I feel angry and overlooked, and I feel like I was handled and then bailed on. What should I do? Yeah, it really seems like your husband did not set you up with a good birthday, but instead it almost seems like a punishment. Like he knows for a fact that you and your mom do not get along, and yet he still invited her on your birthday. Like, is he being serious right now? Like, that just completely sucks. Like, there is literally no good excuse for any of that. So yeah, if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be having a conversation with him, and I would be saying exactly what's on my mind, because this guy literally ruined your birthday by bringing your mom over. And the worst part about it is that I think he did it on purpose. My daughter's crazy psycho father sent a Catholic priest to my work, also he could harass me and try to force me to give my daughter over to my ex. And I'm honestly still blown away by this interaction, and I now seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, my daughter, who's 6 years old, was born from a one-night stand with a man by the name of James. James is not his real name. We were never romantically involved, and it was simply a one-night stand where we did use protection, but it all just completely failed. A few months ago, James went full psycho mode and tried to convince me to leave my daughter with him so she could serve as a replacement child for his wife, who recently lost their infant daughter. I refused, and right now we're in the middle of some really weird legal issues. Now, for today, I thankfully didn't deal with James, but instead, he sent a priest to harass me at work. Now, I'm gonna be very blunt. I'm completely detached from any religion. I'm not an atheist. I just don't really like the idea of the Catholic Church. And for a bit of context, that's the leading religion in my home country. I respect it, and most of my family is Catholic, so I have a detached respect for church officials. Today, I was doing some paperwork when I got a call from a priest asking for me. I didn't have any meetings scheduled, and a lot of times we get visits from clergy asking for donations or participation in events, so I figured that was it. I told the secretary to let him in, and things at first seemed rather polite. We shake hands, we ask how things are going, it's just the usual chit-chat. Then, the priest began talking about how it had come to his attention that I was a single woman with a child, and that apparently I lived a life of debauchery and hate, which are definitely his words and not mine. I was taken aback and agreed that I was a single mother, but that I didn't see how I lived a debauchery and hate-filled life. The priest then went on about how he knew my daughter is prohibited from spending time with her father, and that I'm constantly sleeping around with other men instead of living a godly life. How he was worried and thought it would be best that I considered giving my daughter a chance to live with a proper family rather than trying to see me sell myself. Now, to say I was angry is a complete understatement, but I did keep it civil simply because I was at work and I had no intentions of screaming at a religious man at work. I simply told him that my daughter was fine with me, she lived a safe and happy life, my personal affairs were my own, and that I had no intentions of sending her to another household. I told him that if there was nothing else, then he should probably leave as I had other things to attend to. He then showed his hand, and that's how I knew that this was James's doing. The priest told me he didn't think my daughter would be a happy child with me, but her father was well respected in his church, and he knew he would raise a proper Christian lady. Now at that, I just laughed, and I simply said no, and I once again recommended that he leave, and that if he didn't, then I would be calling security. He then left saying that he would try to speak to me again when I wasn't being hysterical. I told my secretary and our security not to let him into my office ever again, and then I called my lawyer. I don't have audio, but we do have security feed from him walking into my office, and honestly, I'm just so sick of James and all of his antics. Wow, that is actually insane. The father of your child is a complete piece of garbage, and from the sounds of it, based on what the original poster has described, this is like one of many instances where James has like gone off the rails and tried to ruin their life in some kind of way, and that is absolutely toxic and so disturbing. Like seriously, why can't people just leave other people alone? Like this guy literally sent a priest to the original poster's work just to harass them into giving over their child to this guy. Like that's a crazy level of weird that I just can't even begin to understand. So hopefully all this stuff you're dealing with gets resolved sooner than later, because from the sounds of it, your daughter's father sounds like an absolute nightmare. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for telling my friend to not come to my birthday party if she's also going to be bringing her kid? Because right now she is very upset with me, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so one of my friends put together a gathering at a restaurant for my birthday, and the place has a bar where we are going to hang out. The plan was to get tipsy and order appetizers, and even though my husband and I have a 3-year-old, we're hiring a babysitter for the night. And when it comes to the get-together, we even rented out a private room with a bar. Now, my other friend, who we will call Mary, that's not her real name, also has a 5-year-old daughter, and she mentioned that she was going to bring her. Now, I offered to pay my babysitter extra to watch her daughter, but Mary said no because her daughter is in daycare all day, and she doesn't want her to then be with a babysitter after that. I said I understand, but I don't think it's appropriate for her to come to our get-together. For starters, I know our group. We're going to get rowdy, and I don't want to censor myself. And secondly, Mary's daughter is a lot like other 5-year-olds. She doesn't sit still, and she wants to run all over the place. Now, Mary admits that she doesn't bring her out to restaurants much because she doesn't know how to act, but I also know that Mary will just sort of let her go, as she is very permissive. I spoke to my friend who put it together and said I don't want any kids there. There's a reason I got a sitter for my own kid. That friend agreed and told Mary not to bring her daughter, and Mary has now thrown a fit and said that she's not coming. I said I completely understand. There are events I've missed because I don't want to leave my daughter, and the group understands as we all have kids. I told Mary that I'd be glad to have a date or lunch another time with our kids, just so we can all hang out. And I told Mary that I can't stop her from coming to the restaurant, but we absolutely will not allow her to come into our private room. And she's now hurt that we're excluding her. So am I the jerk for not wanting a kid at my party and telling my friend that she can't come if she brings her? Also, it is relevant that Mary did not pay for the rented room. 2 of my other friends did as a gift to me, so it's not as if I'm telling her that she can't come to something that she paid for. What should I do? You're not the jerk at all. You're being very reasonable here. You offered so many solutions so that her daughter could have somewhere to stay while you guys have a party. Like, why would you bring a 5-year-old to a bar to a private party for adults? Like, I don't know about you, but that's probably not the place I would want a kid at. And I totally understand that your kid was in daycare all day, but like seriously, a few extra hours is not gonna ruin this kid. This is like a once a year kind of thing, and it's not like you're gonna do this every single night. So that daycare excuse just doesn't stand up in my opinion. Like, if I was in Mary's shoes, I would be like, yeah, okay, just put my kid with your kids. That makes perfect sense to me, and that way I don't have a kid hogging all of my attention while I'm trying to like spend time with my friends. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. That's a reasonable expectation, as this is an adult environment that kids really shouldn't be at in the first place. And if Mary wants to act weird about it and choose to be offended, then honestly, that is completely on her. Am I the jerk for insisting my mom not sign my wife and I up for religious mailers? Because right now, my mom is so angry with me that she has gone no contact, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Many moons ago, when I was a young little warthog, I realized my parents' religion wasn't all it was cracked up to be. After graduating college and leaving the church, I always seemed to get religious mailers with my name on them. I guessed it was my university or home church keeping up with me, or maybe updating their systems when they got return mail with my new address. Anyways, I bought a house last fall, and I eloped shortly thereafter. I told my immediate family that I'd bought a house, and I sent my mom and my siblings my address. And it's important to note that I didn't give out my address to anybody else. Well, my wife and I started getting religious mail with our first names, but only my last name. For reference, my wife does not have my last name, so seeing her first name with my last name was very suspicious. My wife throws out that there's only one person that fits all the details, and that person, whether it's right or wrong, is my mom. She made a solid case, so I texted my mom and I said, hey, we've been getting religious mail addressed to my wife and I. You wouldn't happen to know anything about that, would you? Not even an hour later, I get a response back by saying, your grandparents wanted it sent to you. Well, my grandma died 5 years ago, and my grandfather died 2 years ago. My grandparents knew of my girlfriend at the time, but they never met before they passed. I followed up by saying, well, they're not around to update these places on my address or my marital status. So is it fair to assume you're doing this on their behalf? She finally admitted it, but then justified it by saying that she's also sponsoring a kid in Africa on their behalf as well. After talking with my wife, we didn't care about the mailer content per se, just that my wife and I's address was being given out to religious institutions that we wanted literally no part of. And mind you, this is without without our awareness or consent and under the guise of the goodwill memory of my grandparents. They're using that as a form of manipulation to cross my wife and I's boundaries. I waited a few days and then texted back in a long text message that my wife and I are not okay with our address being used and to please not misuse it in the future. We don't want it to be used for the memory of my grandparents or anything like that. And we then explained that she probably wouldn't like it if we signed her up for agnostic or Buddhist mailers. Now, rather than giving an apology of any kind, she called the confrontation dumb and justified her actions as okay because she believes in Christianity, and then threatened to go no contact. And ever since then, we haven't heard from her. So now I'm wondering if I should have said nothing, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. No, you are definitely not the jerk. If I was in your shoes, I wouldn't want my address going out to people I don't know, especially if I'm just gonna get junk mail in my inbox. Like, that sounds really obnoxious, and I would also get really upset by that. And you know what? To me, at least if I was in your shoes, it wouldn't even be about whether it was religious mail or not. The fact that someone's giving out my address period to anybody for anything, all without my consent, is really sketchy. That would feel like a massive betrayal of my trust, not to mention a betrayal of my privacy. And I think you have the right idea. If the tables were turned and you signed them up for God knows what, then I'm sure they would flip the script and be like, wait, why are you doing that to me? This all sounds really petty and very frustrating, and honestly, I don't blame you for not wanting anything to do with that. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think your mom absolutely crossed a massive boundary. My lottery win of over $600,000 has my girlfriend dreaming of an early retirement, but I'm currently very worried about our financial future, as I feel we should be prioritizing that over spending our money traveling the world. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm 29 years old and I work as a software developer, and my life took an unexpected turn earlier this year when I won the lottery of a mid-six-figure amount, precisely being $600,000. This was all from a fortunate gamble, and it was a really surreal moment, the kind you dream about but scarcely believe will ever happen. And I now honestly can't wait to retire. I've been in a relationship with my girlfriend for 3 years. She's 27, a passionate graphic designer with a creative soul, often expressing her desire to escape the monotonous 9-to-5 routine. When I shared the news of my windfall with her, her reaction was a mixture of joy and a kind of eagerness I hadn't seen before. She immediately suggested that we retire early, embrace a life of travel and leisure, essentially suggesting we use the winnings to fund a dreamlike existence free from the constraints of traditional employment. Well, herein lies the dilemma. While I'm intoxicated by the idea of spending my days exploring the world with my girlfriend, and yes, I really do love her and I would dream of doing this, the practical side of me can't ignore the reality that $600,000, though it is a significant sum, is not a ticket to perpetual retirement for her, especially at our age. My vision included careful investments, maybe launching a startup, and of course, allowing for some immediate pleasures like travel, but within reason. My girlfriend, however, is already planning an elaborate journey that spans continents, living a nomadic life that, while adventurous, seems financially unsustainable in the long run. And I'm now caught in a whirlwind of emotions. I love her deeply, and the prospect of making beautiful memories across the globe is incredibly appealing. Yet I can't shake off the responsibility I feel towards ensuring our financial security. The last thing I want is to face financial ruin in pursuit of an unobtainable fantasy. The challenge I'm facing is how to communicate this to my girlfriend without dousing her dreams with cold pragmatism. It is crucial for me to find a way to express that while I share her desire for adventure, we must approach this with a strategy that ensures our future security. How do I navigate this conversation without coming across as dismissive of her dreams? Is there a middle ground that allows us to indulge in the freedom this money brings while also planning for our future? I'm seeking advice on how to approach this delicate situation, and I'm hoping to find a balance that both honors our aspirations and acknowledges the realities of our financial situation. What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest and say that the original poster is right. $600,000 is not nearly enough in my opinion, and I think if I was in your shoes, I would be doing the same thing. I would be thinking about my financial future in the future. I would not be blowing all my money just to live some nomadic lifestyle that I think is just not at all reasonable. So yes, there absolutely has to be a middle ground, because what your girlfriend's suggesting is kind of like a pipe dream at best. Like, sure, that money could last you a long time if you're good with the money and you're like really smart with it, but in my opinion, I think it's very short-sighted to be like, okay, we're in our late 20s, time to retire on this amount of money. I don't know, if that's like all the money you're ever gonna make, then you need to spread that out throughout the rest of your life. It just doesn't seem feasible, especially with like inflation and like the increased cost of of everything for that money to last you forever. So yes, I think you're in the right for trying to be more responsible with this money, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would probably be keeping my day job until I get this sorted out, because otherwise you're probably just gonna end up like all the other lottery winners, where all your money's gone and you literally are left with nothing. And that truly really would be a massive tragedy. Am I the jerk for not agreeing to fly in for my stepbrother's 10th birthday party? Because right now my mom and stepdad are treating me like garbage, and at this point I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so before I get into anything, I need to give you some background. Right now I'm 16 years old, living with my dad several states away from my mom. My parents divorced when I was 2 years old, I think, and I know that it was way before I could remember anything. And when I was a lot younger, they shared custody of me. My dad was the parent and my mom was the lazy parent. To get an idea of how she was, just picture the stereotypical dad who pawns their kid off on everyone and doesn't put their kid first. Only that was my mom. She was also very bitter that my dad divorced her, so she made life really difficult when I was younger. She wouldn't communicate with dad about relevant information, like meetings with my school or parent conferences, and usually I would just get some kind of note about them to bring home, and if I was at my mom's, then she wouldn't tell my dad about it, or even let me take the note to him so that he could attend. And it was stressful because I didn't always remember enough of the details. My mom wouldn't sign things that she needed to for my homework or school, and it got me in trouble a lot. And I couldn't get to my dad to ask him to do it when it was my mom's custody time. But the weeks my dad had me, he communicated and never let me suffer because they hated each other. When I was like 9 years old, my mom started dating her now husband. He had 3 kids who had some really awful things happen in their past, so they were looking for that picture-perfect family. But my mom was still the same, although she was kind of better for them than she was for me. And I wasn't interested in playing pretend for others my mom brought into the home when she couldn't be a decent parent to me. My dad ended up with primary custody of me around the time my mom got married, which wasn't long after she met her husband. So I only saw them every other weekend. My mom's stepkids really latched onto me as a big brother, especially the 2 boys. Anyways, they had more of a connection and a longing for us to be close than I did. I really just hated going to my mom's house, period. She never got better as my mom, and I longed to just be with my dad instead of going where my mom simply didn't care. Last year, my dad was offered a job in another state, and I wanted to move with him. So we went to court and won so that my dad could move with me, and the parenting plan was updated, and I was given permission to choose whether I'd visit my mom at all. The long history and my strong feelings meant the judge didn't want to force it. My step-siblings were upset and did ask me to live with them instead, but I just wanted to go. Now that my stepbrother is turning 10, he wants me to be at his party. So my mom called and told me her husband was willing to fly me in for the party so the kids could see me, and especially the birthday boy. I said that I didn't want to go and to save the money. Well, as a result, my mom called me drama. Her husband called me 3 times since then and berated me for saying no when this means so much to his son. He then said that I should be touched that his kids care that much about me instead of acting like a jerk. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think your mom is an absolute piece of work, and I don't blame you for not wanting to live with her. She clearly was not a good mom, and now she's trying to like backpedal and be like, wow, how could you do this to your brother? And it's like, wait a second, didn't you like treat me like garbage all throughout my childhood? Like, this all just seems really backwards, and I don't blame you for not wanting anything to do with her. So no, you are definitely not the jerk, and I think the fact that they're trying to guilt trip you into going, in my opinion, is completely uncalled for. I ended my relationship with my girlfriend all because of her guy best friend, and I'm now questioning if this is the rational thing that I should have done, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. So I've been dating my girlfriend for about 8 months now, and she has a guy best friend who she's very close with. He got her through the toughest times in college, they studied together, and he helped her get through a nasty breakup that she said made her feel the worst depression in her life. So needless to say, he's super important to her, and I understood this before I started dating her. So they talk basically every day on the phone, sometimes for 5 to 15 minutes, and other times for up to an hour. They say stuff like, I love you, bud, whenever they hang up, and I mentioned initially that it made me somewhat uneasy, but she said that she would never date him. So I didn't want to push or make her drop a friend. Anyways, sometime in the past few months, her guy best friend got broken up with, and his girlfriend mentioned how often he talked to my girlfriend as one of the reasons they broke up. So he became depressed and started talking even more with my girlfriend. And she said, considering how he was there for her when she went through her breakup, she needs to be there for him. And I was totally fine with that. So anyways, their talking increases. And sometimes when we hang out, she's talking with him on the phone. By this time, I'm getting a little uneasy. So I told her about it, and she just reassured me that this was like a brother to her. So I said once again, okay, but I mentioned if we were to actually become a couple with marriage as a possibility, then I would feel uneasy about my fiance talking to another guy every single day. Now, at first she brushed it off, but later on she mentioned that she still planned to talk to her best friend every single day. Now, I'm not sure if I'm being controlling, so please tell me if I am, but doesn't it seem weird for someone in a serious relationship to talk to someone else of the opposite sex every single day who isn't their partner? In my head, I just think it's somewhat disrespectful. I think there's the cheating fear in my head, but ignoring cheating for a second, it just seems a little disrespectful to their partner. So I pressed on this, and it became a huge fight. So we made up, and she said something like, I'll show you that you're gonna be my number one, even if my bestie always is gonna be my number two. And then after that, I just dropped it. Now, fast forward to recently, and she told me she's going on a trip with her bestie. It's a solo trip, and they're going to be staying in different hotel rooms, but apparently it's something they planned since college, since they both have family in Canada or something like that. Now, I know how this sounds, and it definitely looks like cheating, but I will say based on my relationship and understanding with her, I'm like 95% sure that it's not cheating. But still, in my head, a solo trip with another guy is unacceptable, even if there is no cheating going on. I think at this point, I was at my limit, and I didn't want to give her an ultimatum or to make a choice between a guy she's been dating for less than a year and her best friend of over 6 years. So I just ended it. I told her that I was done and I didn't want to live like this with my partner, especially if behavior like this was going to continue. She's been extremely distraught and has been trying to get me back ever since then, but in my head, it's completely done. However, if I'm being irrational, I'm honestly open to discussion. What is the rational way for me to go about this situation? What should I do? Honestly, from my perspective, I don't blame you in the slightest. This seems way beyond like what a normal friend would be, and her going on vacation with this guy alone really would have been my breaking point as well. So whether or not you want to get back with this girl or not is really up to you, but I think the fact that you broke up with her is completely justified, as I know I would not want to put up with that for another second. My entitled father-in-law constantly makes a scene at all of my kids' sporting events, as he likes to cause unnecessary arguments with everybody in the crowd, humiliating me, my kids, and my wife in the process. And now, after we banned him from showing up to any of our kids' games any longer, he's turned into an immature jerk, causing a massive rift between my wife and the rest of her family. And at this point, we seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so my septuagenarian father-in-law loves going to our kids' athletic events. We're talking football, soccer, baseball, softball, pretty much everything. The kids are great athletes and the games are a lot of fun. My father-in-law fits the stereotypical boomer profile. He's white, he's Catholic, and he thinks Republicans are good and Democrats are bad. Anything on Fox News is his gospel, and nothing that runs contrary to his beliefs has any merit, no matter how practical or logical. Now, we live a few blocks from him and my mother-in-law. We see them regularly, and my mother-in-law is my wife's best girlfriend. My mother-in-law comes over to the house several times every week, and it is very rare that these two women don't speak at least once. They really do have a great relationship. I get frustrated with my father-in-law, even as a guy that doesn't get upset about politics, but I love and support my wife, and it's important to her that we have a good relationship with her mom and dad. The wife and I say to each other, man, he can be a jerk sometimes, but we want him in our lives and in our children's lives. We have our own flaws and understand that family can be frustrating, and that door certainly swings both ways. In the past, we have had issues with my father-in-law being overbearing at athletic events. He believes he's being supportive, but he is tone deaf as to how he sounds, and he is very critical when offering helpful coaching at games. This past fall, in the middle of the season, our daughter, who is 9 years old, asked if we could tell my father-in-law to not come to the soccer games because his coaching from the sidelines was making her uncomfortable, which makes sense because he would yell and be very loud. She didn't want to hurt his feelings and wanted us to send the message. When my wife mentioned it to her mom, who then passed it along to my father-in-law, his response was that our daughter would never ask him not to come to games. Well, she did. He seemed to accept that he needs to be more aware of how he comes across to other players and parents. He sulked around for a few weeks and then he got over it, and was then granted permission to come to games after a brief talk about being less of a spectacle. He gave no apologies and no promises to reform, but just kind of let out a grunt and said okay. Well, with that in mind, here comes the real drama. Basketball season gets going and my daughter's team plays well and makes it to the playoffs. We are all in the gym for a playoff game a few weeks ago, and not even a full quarter into the game, and my father-in-law is educating a mother from the opposing team on rules of the game, and he's just being abrasive and not informative at all. It's basically him saying, I'm right and you're wrong. He knows he's being argumentative, and he's happy to prove to anyone in earshot of how right he is. Things get to the point where the mother is moving seats to put distance between her and my father-in-law. I tap my wife to take her attention away from our daughter playing, to let her know that there's a situation going on. To her credit, she's sitting on the other side of our group, and the noise in the gym is masking the increasing volume of the interaction. Now, why did I bring it to my wife's attention instead of addressing it myself? Well, that's because I've had interactions with my father-in-law on this very subject, as well as other subjects similar, and my first inclination would be to tell him to shut up at a volume and tone that would be very startling. As that would not be the best approach to diffuse the situation, my thought was that his grown adult daughter may have some more success. We're looking to put water on the brush fire and not napalm. She walks to where he is and politely asks him to let it go, then goes back over to sit down. A few moments later, not even a full minute, my father-in-law is back to educating the other mother. So my wife gets up and asks him more sternly to knock it off and then returns to her seat. Parents from both teams are looking over to see what the commotion is, and it's pretty clear to everyone what's happening. Well, less than a minute later, he's back at it again. My wife goes over again and tells him to stop talking, but this time my father-in-law says, no, I will absolutely not. Now, for some reason, this absolutely rocked me. The first reason is that I've never heard him talk to his daughter like that before, and secondly, I was floored by the lack of respect for his adult daughter and the mother to 5 of his grandchildren. Maybe I had been blind to it before, but it was so clear that he would walk over her if his ego was threatened. I was equally enraged and sad at this point, but I had had enough. I lean over, make eye contact with him, and I say, loud enough to be heard over the basketball game, you need to shut your mouth. And I'm surprised a swear word didn't come along with that statement. Well, he stopped talking. He doesn't say a word for the rest of the game, and when the game is over, he leaves without a goodbye or a congratulations to my daughter for the win. My wife and I know there's going to be blowback, and that I'm going to be the bad guy in my father-in-law's narrative, and I'm honestly okay with that. I can be the jerk in his fiction because I know my ego will survive. My wife and I know what happened, and I want my father-in-law to know that I'll stand up to anyone that disrespects his daughter, even if that person is him. And what I'm not okay with is my father-in-law's treatment of his daughter. I suggest to my wife that if her dad ever comes to another game, then there's 3 things that need to happen. For starters, he needs to apologize to my wife, he needs to behave at all functions, and he needs to agree that if anyone asks him to stop, then he will do so immediately, regardless of if it's strangers, coaches, or the referees. The next day, my wife gets a call from her mom to announce her dad's decision on what our punishment will be. He won't be coming to our house if I'm there, he won't be coming to events if I'm present, and he will not be attending Easter Sunday brunch with us. My thought was, wow, you're gonna back yourself into a corner here, aren't ya? Okay, let's see how you play poker with no chips. My wife tells my father-in-law through my mother-in-law that because we're children and have to play telephone, that he will not be allowed to attend softball or baseball games if he maintains his position. Now, we have not had any direct interaction with him for a few weeks now, but my wife and her mom talk daily. My mother-in-law says that my father-in-law is her husband and she has to support him. My wife explains that one can support their spouse without supporting every thought, feeling, or action. I mean, my mother-in-law is in a bad spot because my father-in-law is essentially pushing her to take his side for acting like a jerk, and otherwise she is not a supportive spouse, which is very childlike behavior from a senior citizen. Over this past weekend, I was traveling and I get a call from the wife, and this is where the Cold War has gone hot. My mother-in-law called to ask what time our daughter's softball games will be this weekend. My wife tells her the times and reminds her that she is welcome, but my father-in-law is not. Well, my mother-in-law says, oh, that's silly, it's been long enough. My wife responds by saying, these are literally the first games of the season. He has not missed any athletic events. There have been no consequences for him yet. So no, he is not invited. Well, this is where things get dark. My mother-in-law ups the ante and asks if my wife is planning to be at the games. My wife says that she will be, and my mother-in-law says, then I don't want to go. Your father is wrong for not respecting you, but you need to respect him. I don't want to be around you if you can't respect your father. My heart hurt when I heard this. My wife loves her mother and they are very close friends. My father-in-law is making my mother-in-law stand behind his misbehavior and causing a rift between my mother-in-law and my wife. My wife says that she's hurt by her mom, but if she wants to hurt feelings, then my wife will play along. along. My wife says there will be no contact with our families. My mother-in-law says, "You're not going to keep the grandchildren from us, are you?" And my wife responded by saying yes. And that's honestly where it stands as of today. I'm not sure how this will play out, but I believe my father-in-law is about to learn how truly ineffective he really is. Wow, your father-in-law's acting like a child. Like seriously, the way he's acting is super immature. First of all, if you're going to kids' sporting events, you need to just relax and realize that all the kids on that field really suck. They're just kids playing games, and yes, it can be competitive, but it shouldn't be at the expense of everybody else around you. Like they're not competing for some national championship, and they're not gonna go pro anytime soon. They are literally just kids, so just let them play their game. So when someone acts like the father-in-law in this story and freaks out about how things are going in the game, trying to educate people around them, like that is really cringy behavior and nobody needs to deal with that. Like that really is insane to me, and honestly, I just can't stand when people act like that. And it's also crazy to me that the father-in-law wouldn't accept the fact that their granddaughter is saying, "Hey, don't show up to my soccer game." Like that guy has to lack a lot of self-awareness to not understand the effect he's having on everybody else around him. He's literally making a scene at these kids' games and making everything awkward for everybody. So you know what? With all things considered, I don't blame you for a second for going this route and drawing a very clear line in the sand that they must abide by, otherwise they're not going to see the kids. Because this father-in-law's behavior is incredibly disruptive, and in my opinion, there's absolutely no good excuse for the way he's behaving. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. An entitled customer ruins my day literally 3 minutes into the job, as she calls in complaining, ready to start a fight. And I'm honestly so done with customers like this, and I really hope I don't have to deal with her ever again. Here's what happened. So this just happened now, and I really need to vent about this. Exactly 3 minutes after I opened the store that I work at, a customer called in. It was a lady complaining about receiving an incorrect item for an online order. She gave me an invoice number which belonged to a man, I'll call him Bob, not his real name, and she was calling on his behalf apparently. She said that she received this one item and not this other one that she was actually looking for. This then reminded me of an email that I just saw in the inbox of a man complaining about the same thing. The name on the email was the same on the invoice, so it was the same issue. I then said, "I'm sorry, hold on, did Bob email about this already?" The lady on the line said, "Yes, he did, but he hasn't received a reply." So I responded by saying, "We've been open for 3 minutes, and he emailed me after closing yesterday. We haven't had any time to reply." The lady responded by saying, "So, what are you gonna do about it?" I thought to myself, so? I mean, I understand that we messed up, and we will of course remedy the situation, but we've only been open for 3 minutes. I mean, give us time to actually sit down and assess the situation. What sort of entitled, impatient jerk just says to themselves, "Well, Bob hasn't received a reply in 3 minutes. I have to call and bother these people now." Now, she knows we've only been open for 3 minutes because she would have seen the opening time when she Googled our phone number. She also probably waited until 9 o'clock in the morning to call because she knew that we would be closed until then. I could not believe the entitlement. So I said to her, "What I'll do is I'll reply to his email when I get the chance." Now, the lady on the other line sounded audibly annoyed. She said to me, "What? Why not just do it now while I'm on the phone?" I then said to her again, "We have been open for 3 minutes. The only reason I know of Bob's email is because the first thing I do every morning is scan the inbox for urgent emails that need addressing first. I saw Bob's but skipped it because there are more urgent emails. I will be addressing those first because they are time sensitive. And then I'll email other people because they emailed before Bob. We will let Bob know of the solution once we reach his email." The lady then said, "Okay, fine, whatever." And then she hung up the phone. Now, I don't know who she was to Bob or if Bob is as entitled as she is, but this delightful lady expected a reply to his email within 3 minutes of us opening, and then expected me to help him before other people just because she called to bother me. But you know what? That is definitely not going to happen. Other people need my help as well, and they have waited their turn patiently. You are not entitled to jump the queue just because you're more impatient. Yeah, when I've worked customer service, dealing with people like this is absolutely obnoxious. It really does ruin your day when you're literally just starting the day, and these people are calling in already upset at you. Like you haven't even had a chance to have any good interactions, and then all of a sudden, top of the morning, time to really ruin everything. And the original poster, by the way, is completely right. There are probably other people inside that email address that definitely emailed before Bob, and just because you're calling sooner doesn't mean you're gonna get priority over other people who already emailed. Like if I was one of the people that already emailed ahead of this lady, and I found out that I was not getting help before this lady, I would also be pretty upset because that just wouldn't be fair. Like effectively, that lady's cutting in line in front of all these other people, but she just doesn't care about it. So truly, I really do relate with the original poster because sometimes customers can be absolutely obnoxious. Am I the jerk for refusing to go on vacation with my family, all because I've been making massive gains in the gym and I don't want to lose all that progress over the weeks that I will be gone? Because right now, I'm being called a jerk, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm an 18-year-old male and a senior in high school. My family are immigrants, and we go back to the country my parents are from every summer to visit family. They're planning to this summer, and I just don't want to go with them. My reasoning is that I've been going to the gym for a year and a half, and I have made some good progress, and I would lose a lot of those gains if I were to not work out for 2 months. I initially asked if I could get a gym membership while we were there, but they said that no, because we will be going across the country to visit family that lives in different places, and we won't be in any place more than a week or two, so it just won't be practical. I asked them if I can bring a set of dumbbells with me, and they said no because it would be extra weight in the suitcases, which would then mean having to pay the airline extra. I then asked if I could at least buy some dumbbells while we're there with my own money, and again, they said no, as those would be a pain to carry around. They said that if I wanted to, I could do stuff like push-ups and it would be just as good. But the issue is that this isn't true. A lot of my lifts, all of the big ones such as bench, deadlift, and squat, are significantly more than my body weight. For example, my bench is 225 and I'm 160 pounds. So if I were to replace bench press with push-ups to hit my chest, I'd be giving a lot less stimulus to my chest and my muscle mass would decline. They said it's just muscle and it doesn't matter. But I've been busting my butt for a long time, working out 6 days a week, staying consistent for my diet and all this other stuff. So watching that progress go down the drain really bothers me. They say that I'm a jerk for not wanting to spend time with my family, but I think they're being unreasonable. I suggested 3 different compromises that would allow me to keep my gains, and I would be okay going with them in any of those cases, but they said no to all of them. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, I'm gonna be completely honest, and I say this in a nice way, but yes, I do think you are being a jerk right now. And trust me, I understand where you're coming from. You've been going to the gym and you've made a lot of progress in your personal health and like your personal fitness, and as someone who's walked that path recently, I totally get it. It makes sense as to why you would want to keep that up, and I completely understand where you're coming from. But on the other end of this, I think it really just doesn't make sense for you to be like, no, I can't go visit family because I gotta work out. Maybe someone can correct me if I'm wrong, but I would be very surprised if you lost all that muscle mass and all those gains literally over a summer just because you visited family. Like sure, maybe there might be some small noticeable difference, but like seriously, family's not gonna be around forever, and it doesn't sound like you have any like real conflict with them or like you don't like them or anything like that. It just sounds like you don't want to go because you want to work out instead. And that just sounds really counterintuitive in my opinion. Because I gotta be honest, spending time with your family over the summer doesn't sound like a bad idea, especially if you're close with that family and you enjoy being around that family. If you didn't like them, that would be a completely different story. But for you to be like, oh man, I don't want to go because I want to work out, it almost comes off as you being really shallow and acting like you can't take any time off just to see your family. Because I think your family's right. There are several alternatives that you could easily do while you're away out of the country. Like there might even be gyms in the cities that you would go to that offer free trials for like a week that you could easily take advantage of. Like you could go there, get your workouts in, and still spend time with your family. So overall, in my opinion, I think you're being very short-sighted in this regard, and I think it would be a massive mistake to miss out spending time with your family. Because from the sounds of it, it really does seem like your reasoning for wanting to stay home just doesn't quite add up. And I just think that overall, that would be a massive mistake. Am I the jerk for not giving my friend my bread recipe, also she can make her own bread and compete with me in my own business? Because right now, my friend group is split over this, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, to start things out, I'm a sourdough baker. I've been baking sourdough for 6 years since I was a senior in high school in a teeny tiny apartment, so to qualify it as a passion is nearly an understatement. Many of my friends bake as well. Now, I run an in-home bakery to make extra money on the side as a stay-at-home mom while my husband works, and we've been able to consistently pay our bills with the money this bread brings in. One of my closer friends wanted to start baking sourdough this past November. She asked if she could have some starter, which I normally sell, and I gifted it to her. She and I talk on the phone at least weekly, so I didn't have an issue not charging her anything for it. In fact, until recently, the thought didn't even cross my mind. Only last week did my husband mention that it's strange for a friend to not offer to pay for services or products that I normally charge for. But either way, I gave her a jar and I didn't think twice, and life just went on as normal. Now, I have to say, this particular friend is known as the vampire in our group. She'll date a guy or become really good friends with someone and then just take parts of their personality as her own. Most of her hobbies came about this way, and it's made relationships difficult for her. She never had a successful loaf of bread after nearly 20 tries until I came to stay for a weekend and walked her through everything meticulously, using the recipe that she'd been trying. Her bread is still inconsistent, which is very normal early on with sourdough, and yet she kept bringing it up as her supposed passion. A few days passed by, and all of a sudden, I see pictures of store-bought bread come up on her social media on the days I normally post promo shots or menus. Now, I'm not the Instagram police, but I just had a gut feeling that she was trying to be competitive about it, because it's happened before with her and the original owners of her hobbies, for lack of a better phrase. So I let it play out, and then I totally baited her. I told her on the phone one morning that I was waiting for my camera battery to charge because I needed to take pictures of some bread to post that day. Almost immediately, she posted a picture of her own bread. I called her out on it, and she said that it was too pretty not to post, but it was very obviously an old photo based on the snow outside. Within a week, she was talking about opening her own in-house bakery, and then she asked for all of my recipes, but I flat out told her no. I made some joke about them being my own Powerpuff Girls experiment that I've spent the last 6 years perfecting, and when I said that, she got so angry about it. Some of our mutual friends reached out and said that I was too rude and that I should just give her the recipe because it's obvious that she's lonely. But I literally make money off of this. I wouldn't ask an artist to send me a commission for free, all because I'm curious to make my own art. Well, as a result, this somehow split our friend group, and I'm honestly just so tired of feeling leeched. And my friends that she has done this also feel the same way as me. So honestly, am I the jerk for not giving out my bread recipes? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. She's clearly trying to rip off what you do for a living and try and pass it off as her own. Like she's only doing this because you're doing it in the first place, and you're successful enough where you can actually pay your bills through this hobby. And those recipes are literally everything that makes or breaks your business. Like you literally said it best. You spent the last 6 years perfecting this recipe. Why on earth would you be expected to hand that over to a friend just so she can rip off your recipe and try and like dilute your client base? Like that's insane to me, and I don't blame you for saying no, you're not going to get my recipe. You were already gracious enough to help her out and give her some starter, as well as help her out with the recipe that she was working with. But what she's asking now is completely over the line. This is inappropriate, and there's no way I would ever say yes to that. An entitled bus driver is constantly bullying me every time I come up to the shuttle, as he likes to try and drive off without me, even though he sees me approaching his bus. And after having this happen so many times, as well as reporting him to the university that I go to, I'm now at my breaking point because I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I don't know if I would call what he is doing bullying or not, but all I know is that he does not like me. For reference, I work at a university that has an extensive shuttle system around the campus and around the city, and as part of my commute, I take one of the many shuttles to the building I work in. There's an app that tracks the shuttle location and shows the stop locations as well. Anyways, one day I was approaching the bus stop where I saw one of the shuttles sitting there parked, and the drivers often take 5 to 10 minute breaks at particular stops along their route, and when I looked at the app, it said that the bus wasn't supposed to reach its destination a few blocks away for another 10 minutes. So I figured I would have time to get to the crosswalk and cross the street to get to the shuttle. When I did and got on the bus, the driver, let's call him George, not his real name, who is one of these fake Sam Elliott wannabes, scoffed at me and said, "You could have just cut across the street, kid, there was nobody coming." But I told him that even though nobody's on the street, I wasn't gonna jaywalk because it's dangerous. I mean, common sense, right? Well, George didn't think so. He laughed and warned me not to think I could take my sweet time catching up to the shuttle because he had a schedule to keep and was told not to waste his time. I asked him when he was planning on departing because I was going off what the app said, but he said it didn't matter because he could have been leaving at any minute and that I was lucky he let me on at the stop he was scheduled to be at that time. Now, I didn't want to continue the stupid argument, so I just said I'm not jaywalking and then I took my seat. We ended up sitting at the stop for another 5 minutes before he left, so why would he tell me to do something that could have gotten me hurt? The next day, I arrive at the same crosswalk at the same time, and there's George sitting parked in the shuttle across the street waiting. He sees me and gets this weird smirk on his face. Despite the app saying he wasn't going to arrive to the next stop 2 blocks away for 10 minutes, he all of a sudden grabs the steering wheel and turns on his blinker, despite not being able to go until I crossed the street because he was at a red light. I stepped into the shuttle and he says, "What would have happened if I drove off just now?" And when he said that, I looked at him with bewilderment. I just said to him, I would have waited for another shuttle, and then I sat down. He scoffs again and takes off immediately, making it to the next stop and sitting there for his break instead. The third interaction that we had, he was ready to peel off, but the red light gave me the time it took to get across the street and approach the bus door. But this time, he didn't even look at me when I got on, instead telling me rudely to sit down. I barely had a chance to do so before he started moving the shuttle. This time, I plainly asked him what the issue was with me, since I offended him in some kind of way. I don't know what I did, and to that he said, "You waste so much of my time at the crosswalk, kid. You could just cross the street." At this point, I was genuinely confused, and asked him if the bus schedule needs to be updated, if he really needs to leave that stop so urgently. He replied, "That's not the point. If I'm waiting, you hurry up, even if I'm not waiting for you." At this point, I realized I was arguing with someone who got some kind of weird power trip out of driving a shuttle. I told him that you should never encourage someone to break laws just to catch a bus, and he just didn't even answer me when I said that. After that exchange, every time he sees me approaching the crosswalk to the stop, he suddenly ends his brake and drives away from the light the minute the light turns green. If there are other people at the stop with me, he'll scowl at me when I get on and act really put upon when other people thank him once he reaches their stop. I mean, it's just so stupid. I've tried to memorize which bus numbers he drives, but with the university shuffling around employees due to various layoffs and funding issues, he's been surprising me at other stops. Sometimes he'll see me at a stop waiting and go, or stop a couple of bus links away from the stop just to make me jog to the shuttle, or he will pretend not to see me at the stop if I'm alone and drive right past me until I wave him down. I have reported him to the university, but I get no response other than the fact that they say they're looking into it. I've also started using other lines and stops than the one he typically stops at, but like I said, he surprises me sometimes. My job is too far from the bus stops my commute usually takes me to, so unless I feel like running, the shuttles are the most viable option. Regardless of my options, I shouldn't feel victimized for wanting to ride a bus. It's all just really weird and I seriously don't know what to do. Wow, this guy's a massive jerk. Like, he's not only having a power trip as you described, but he's also trying to like lord over you in some kind of way. And that just doesn't make any sense. Like, seriously, just leave the original poster alone. They're just trying to go to work and you're making things weird. In my opinion, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to start recording every interaction you have getting to that bus, because clearly a written report is just not working for these people. You need some kind of like visual evidence to like show on social media and be like, hey, this bus driver is literally bullying me. They're causing nothing but problems in my life and I'm sick of it. So hopefully this gets figured out sooner than later, because this bus driver sounds insane and there's no reason for you to be treated that way in the slightest. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. I caught my boyfriend flirting through text messaging with another girl once again, and after dealing with this several times with other women, I'm honestly at my breaking point and I seriously now don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I've been with my boyfriend for about 4 years. We have certainly had our ups and downs through our time together, as any couple does, but this issue has resurfaced one too many times. Once again, last night, I found my boyfriend messaging a girl. While at first, I try to give him the benefit of the doubt and think maybe he's messaging them because he needs help with schoolwork because they are from his class, but I could tell it was flirtatious on his part. He was sending selfies of himself, asking what she's up to, and told her that he only sits in class where he does because of her, and would even hint at hanging out with her later, or even just complimenting her in general. I admittedly snooped on his phone while he was asleep. I mean, curiosity just killed the cat, and I saw the first iMessage on his phone with this girl that was muted, and it's right then that red flags started to go off in my head. I immediately was brought to tears and I ran to the bathroom and I threw up from the stress. There's more to this because this isn't the first time, nor is it it even the second or the third time. Last month, the same thing happened. His plan goes the same way, where he casually mentions that he made a new friend in his class and that's that. But then he starts talking about the girl a little too much for comfort. I'll get curious and look at his phone, but I'll snoop around and find text messages of him coming across as flirtatious and going out of his way to double text them and ask them to plan for a hangout. Now, as a side note, as this is important, throughout our entire relationship, there has never been an issue of not allowing each other to use our phones. I mean, I'll casually lend him mine for anything, and he's done the same for me as well. I mean, I have sat down with him just last month and talked to him seriously about my feelings and just how hurtful all of this is, and how I would appreciate him being honest with me instead of hiding things, and how I believe it is going too far to ask another girl to hang out one-on-one, especially without my knowledge. But I guess all these previous incidents just didn't matter to him. I've expressed to him it is borderline cheating at this point because it has happened multiple times, despite me having told him how I feel about his inappropriate behavior. This is a difference between just being friends and then being overly friendly. And I know what you're thinking. Well, why stay with him? What does he offer anyways? I should just leave. I mean, I can already hear the comments screaming this at me. And trust me, I know guys, but it just doesn't feel that easy for me. And this is because I'm currently staying with him, as my living situation for my apartment has been catastrophic. And I don't want to go into detail about it, but it has led me to needing to stay with him more frequently. The soonest I can realistically move into a better situation is potentially May. I was planning on getting an apartment with him, but I don't know how reasonable that is anymore with this. I am extremely stressed for my future living situation. I don't want to crawl back to my apartment that I have right now because of a number of reasons, but if I have to, I could try. I just don't know how to muster strength for it. Additionally, he has been my rock for everything. It's really difficult because I've gone through a lot of awful experiences in my life already, and he has helped me through the scary, dark times, and I have difficulty visualizing how I can manage without him. We have broken up before and it was ugly, but we ended up rekindling the fire and things have been fine, but not great, obviously. Now, I take this to the internet because I feel so stressed out and lost. Part of me thinks I can just suck it up and accept it for what it is. I can just move on from it and hope that I don't discover anymore. But the other half of me thinks that's just garbage. I'm already having immense difficulty with other things in my life at the moment. I mean, I'm a full-time university student, and also I support myself financially, and I have other things to worry about. So I'm worried if I should just put this on the back burner and continue to live and stay at least somewhat comfortably with my boyfriend, who has helped me through a lot, or if I should just call it quits. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, it sounds like your boyfriend is like actively trying to cheat on you, and it doesn't seem like any conversation you're having with him is at all getting through his thick skull. This guy is clearly trying to get with other women. Like, he is actively flirting with them via text messaging, and he's going out of his way to like find new women to befriend, to be like, oh, I found a new friend, and you know it's always a woman. It's always the same story every single time. He does this sketchy stuff, then you find out about it and have a talk with him, and then maybe he gets better for like a week or two, but then it's right back to the same situation where he's finding another girl to text, and it's just like, when does it end? So yeah, in my opinion, your boyfriend definitely sounds super sketchy, and it doesn't sound like he's being faithful at all. And I wouldn't even call this like borderline cheating. It really does sound like cheating, and in my opinion, you definitely do not deserve that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not sending a message to my stepdad that his brother passed away? Because right now, I'm being called a jerk, despite the fact that I went no contact with him for over 10 years. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of background, my stepdad and I got on fine initially when my mother was around, but sadly, she passed away 13 years ago. From the moment she passed away, he stopped being a father figure. My brother moved in with my grandma, and I decided to stay at our house. I guess it was the last reminder of my mom, and I didn't want to give up my home. My stepdad would leave the house for weeks, leaving like $30 for me to buy food, and if I'm lucky enough, for electricity and gas. And I was 15 at the time. At that time, I accepted that he was going through as much grief as me, and just kind of accepted it. He is from Jamaica, and in his words, at 15, I was a man. I would have my friends around sometimes just to be around other people, and he would come home every once in a while, but ultimately left me to fend for myself for weeks and months at a time. Then, when he found a new partner, and his kids came to England from America, which by the way was a complete surprise to all of us in my family, as we didn't know that he had kids, he started wanting me to look after his kids during my half terms, which I refused because as far as I was concerned, learned it was not my job to feed them or to even look after his kids while he would go out with his friends. Eventually, he asked me to leave the house. My family on my mother's side was furious, but in the end, I left to live with my grandma. Since that day, I have refused to interact or talk to him. I don't have severe anger towards him, but I just don't want to talk to him ever again. Moving on to the present day, and last week my aunt found out my stepdad's brother had passed away. While I have no personal issues with my stepdad's brother, I really don't know the man. I saw him like 5 times when my mom was alive, and then never spoke to him again as he just wasn't ever around. My aunt strangely has been making a massive deal about it, about how no one on my mother's side of the family has reached out to him more, and in particular, she is upset and disappointed that I chose not to message my stepdad, and I made it clear that while I don't wish him any ill will, I have not spoken to that man for over a decade and I would like to stay that way. My brother has informed me that she has constantly mentioned how what I did is wrong, but I feel like I set my boundaries and I just want zero interactions with that man. But maybe I'm wrong, I'm honestly not sure. So I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. It doesn't sound like your stepdad was a very good dad at all, and this is all simply because he left you for weeks on end with very little money. Like, I don't know about you, but $30 for several weeks is not that much, and especially for like a teenager to be left in that situation. Like, I know if I was 15 in that scenario, I would not know what to do. Like, at that age, I wouldn't have nearly enough life experience to have anything figured out, let alone be forced to live by myself without any kind of parental figure to like guide me and help me get stuff done. And I'm sure others probably could figure that out when they were 15 years old, and to them, I congratulate you for being that mature at that age, but there's no way I could do that if I was in the original poster's shoes. So with all things considered, I don't blame you for having no contact with your stepdad, because he really did not care about you in the slightest. And in my opinion, anyone who's like, wow, how could you cut him off like that? Those people very clearly turned a blind eye to him basically neglecting you, and that is something that you absolutely did not deserve. My best friend of 10 years always seems to be envious of everyone and everything, including me. And after dealing with this recently, I'm now questioning our friendship, as at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so we've been friends for almost 10 years, and this is probably the first time I have ever considered cutting her off. Essentially, my friend is an envious person. She's admitted to it in the past. When she sees people with luxury bags, shoes, lifestyle, and traveling around, she feels jealous and wants the same for herself. I can't say I relate, but I do understand why she feels this way. This used to bother me, as she has been the interim breadwinner for her family ever since she had a job, and I chalked it up to that. And the jealousy is never towards me or any of our close friends, but it's more on the kind of stuff that people brag about on social media. I have also known her to be a kind person and an amazing friend. She's the kind of person that would drop everything for you if you tell her you need her. She really is a sister to me. She got promoted at work about 2 years ago or so with a significant addition to her pay, and I was ecstatic to see her fulfill the life that she wants for herself, as I know how important it is for her to experience the things that she always seemed to only see in other people. So she did exactly that. She bought the things that she used to tell me about and traveled to places her social media friends have gone to, and go to all the new and trending restaurants. I mean, heck, I'd even indulge with her every now and then. However, recently I noticed that every conversation we have is her picking on people we don't even know, and the comments would be her saying stuff like, why is her Instagram story like that? The colors don't even complement each other. Or she'll say, how tacky is it to wear 5-inch heels at the mall? It's just this petty, judgmental stuff, and I would not react to what she said as to not further enable her, but I would simply remain quiet. The real issue is when she started saying she was jealous of my achievements as well. I had a hefty pay raise recently that I fought tooth and nail for. Hence, I was ecstatic to treat her and one of my other friends to dinner because they truly saw me through this feat and gave me the confidence to ask for what I deserve. Upon sharing the news, her response was to say, wow, I'm so jealous. I have a higher role than you and you probably already match my salary. Now, this comment really caught my attention because, as I've mentioned earlier, she wasn't like this to her close friends, and she would often say that she would never see us as competition because we are closest friends. What she said to me felt off, but I gave her the benefit of the doubt and I just let it go. The biggest blow to our friendship was an opportunity that I've been looking forward to travel outside the country for work. This would require me to travel to a different continent and spend a good amount of time that is paid for by our company, but by no means am I vacationing, as I will be there strictly for work. When I stupidly shared what I thought was good news, she said it again again. Wow, I'm so jealous of you that you're going to another country. That's one that I've dreamed of going to, and you're gonna be there before me. I wanna go as well. Mind you, this country has only come up in conversation before when I'm telling her how much I want the opportunity to work there. So this time, I decide to say something. I spoke calmly and I said, hey, we always said we'd never compare ourselves to each other. If you want, you can come with me and we can explore on the weekends. And after I said that, there was absolute dead silence. She acted like she didn't hear me, and we sat across from each other for 45 minutes without speaking. The next time we saw each other, she told me about her flight and itinerary to the same country I was going to. No mention of my offer to go together because she's planning to book her flight ahead of mine. This felt really gross to me because up until this point, I thought that the jealousy towards material stuff is actually motivating her to work harder, but I would have never deemed it could be done with malice, more so against me, like ever. What's really throwing me off is that she was unwilling to even talk about it, which really leads me to believe that she is aware of her awful behavior and she is consciously or even unconsciously admitting that she is jealous of me in situations when I have good things to share. I don't know about you, but I believe that when people around you wish ill of you or pray for your downfall, that negatively lingers. And if you are incapable of feeling happiness towards your friend's achievements, how much of the friendship is still left in that? So I'm now left trying to figure out how to approach this because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Yeah, your friend sounds super toxic. I'm just gonna say this outright. She can't celebrate anything that you have in your life without feeling jealous that she doesn't have it as well. Like, this just doesn't sound like a good friend at all. And as someone who has dealt with people like this in my own life in varying degrees, I can tell you that from personal experience, that jealousy soon becomes resentment on her end towards you, especially if you're doing better than her. And it's so funny because you've never acted this way towards her at all. Like, you've never flipped this around and acted jealous towards her for all the money that she's gotten. Instead, you've celebrated with her and said that's awesome. So it's really unfortunate that she can't do the same. And hopefully this gets worked out sooner than later. Am I the jerk for not wanting to make cheesecake for another family event? Because right now, my mom is angry at me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 19-year-old female and I still live with my family. And for a bit of background, my parents have a pretty nice house. So usually for most family gatherings, people come to our house for the festivities. My parents are normally kind and understanding people and do give me choices on what I want to do. So about 2 years ago, I went to New York City and my mom ended up buying me a cheesecake cookbook from one of the restaurants they have. I fell in love with this cookbook and it's now my favorite cookbook that I own. When I returned from my trip, I made a standard cheesecake from the book, it being a baked cheesecake with a sponge cake crust. It was a hit with my parents, so my mom asked me if I could make it for Thanksgiving that year, so I agreed. Again, it was a hit with my family and everyone complimented me on it. Now, the cheesecake itself is very time consuming, taking almost 3 hours, including prep, mixing, and baking, and it's very stressful because if one thing goes wrong, the whole cheesecake will suffer. Even if you mess up the cooling process, the cake can crack or get soggy. It used to be fun, but now I hate having to mask it every time we have a holiday. Now, I went to the kitchen mostly looking for something to make myself for dinner, and I saw cream cheese in the fridge and I ended up sighing heavily. I was planning on hanging out with friends, but because I forgot all about the cheesecake, that means I may end up having to come home early. And this is just to make sure that I have enough time to make this stupid cake. My mom asked me what's wrong, and I tell her in these exact words, I'm going to have to come home early because now I have to make the cheesecake. And I will admit it, I did say this in a bit of an annoyed tone. My mom then got all defensive with me, saying how everyone loves my cheesecake and how I would be letting everyone down if I didn't make it. She then called me lazy and did the little passive-aggressive, fine, have it your way. And when she said this, I was so shocked I just couldn't even speak. She just continued to rant to me how she was going to figure out a way for there to be a cheesecake. I ended up telling her that I didn't say I wasn't going to make it, but that it is annoying that I'm always making this cheesecake only when she wants me to. I can't bake when I want to, but when it comes to this cheesecake for family gatherings, it's all of a sudden a family tradition. I know everyone likes my cheesecake, but it's also such an annoying recipe, and it causes me stress to make sure nothing goes wrong with it. Should I just make it to make everybody else happy? Am I being selfish right now? What should I do? No, I don't think you're being selfish or the jerk. Like, this really is kind of like obnoxious at this point, and it's almost expected instead of people like asking you to try and make it for them. Like, if they asked you ahead of time, then probably you would be more inclined to be like, yeah, sure, let me plan on it and then we could just get it done. But the fact that your mom and your family have all these ingredients and they're almost shoving it at you and saying, here, make the cheesecake, with no regard to how long it takes you to make it in the first place, in my opinion, opinion, is just so inappropriate. So I think you could make the cheesecake this time, but then say, hey, in the future, if you want me to make this, then you need to tell me well in advance. Because having this sprung on you at the last second is just not fair. And if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. An entitled jerk comes into Walmart and tries to return an entertainment center that we blatantly do not sell. And even though I tried to ask for a receipt of some kind to prove that he purchased it here, this guy gets angrier in such a way where I couldn't help but smile and nearly start laughing at his temper tantrum. And I've honestly never been more blown away by an adult making this kind of ruckus. Here's what happened. Okay, so this happened back in 2000 when I was still just a young, naive kid that had only dealt with maybe 2 or 3 entitled people in my life. I had yet to develop the 1,000-yard stare or the hard shell that comes along with working retail. So I'm working returns when a man about 30 or 35 years old walks up leading an employee that is wheeling up a large entertainment center. This thing is fully assembled and has ornate wood details with a very lovely finish. In other words, it's something you wouldn't find at this kind of store. The man starts off very cordial. He says to me, "I want my money back. I thought it would fit in my living room, but it's too small." I asked to see a receipt or perhaps the box it came in, but he didn't have either of those. So I called the manager of home furnishings just to see if there's a similar one for a price and a barcode, mainly because I doubt we sell anything like this. I asked the man if he'd like to have a seat while the manager checked for this entertainment center. Well, suddenly this guy begins turning red as he raises his voice. He says to me, "Do I look like I need to sit down? Do you think I need to calm down?" Now, I respond politely, trying to de-escalate the situation. "No, sir, I simply thought you might want to sit while you wait." I then smiled to help the next customer. His voice then raised in pitch as he shouted, "Are you laughing at me? It's not funny." I didn't respond as I attempted to help the next customer in line, but it was hard not to find it funny that this man was angry about me doing my job. We are required to smile and greet customers. The manager of furnishing returns and explains that we have nothing similar to this item and asked him where he bought it. The man raises his voice again and says to me, "I bought it here. I demand to speak to the manager." So the home furnishing manager asked him to wait while I contact the floor manager so that he could come and speak to this man. Meanwhile, the man is ranting and screaming even more. "Useless employees making me wait. Can't do their jobs at all. Why are you smiling?" Now, the last part is directed at me. He now sounds like a little boy throwing a temper tantrum, and right now it is super difficult not to laugh. My coworkers, being veterans of perpetual nonsense, are barely reacting at all. The other customers are trying hard to stifle their chuckles and avert their gazes. This doesn't help, as this man's voice now sounds something like an angry Mickey Mouse. Children are now stopping as they're walking by with their parents, hoping to find out why Mickey's shouting at us in the store. I'm now pretty red-faced, and the customer's just looking on in shock, as this man looks like he's about to explode like an overinflated balloon. And he sounds like he sucked out enough helium to do just that. Thankfully, the manager appeared and settled the man down. He pulled him away from view of the service desk, and he returned to tell me to take a break and calm down before returning to the irate customer. He was able to get the man to understand all the way up until he explained that we could not take it back without a receipt. The irate man growled at a similar pitch to a chihuahua before storming off, all without his fancy entertainment center. I was told that I was not cut out for working the service desk and was instead demoted to cashier. It took almost a year to develop thick skin that I needed to work retail. Now, the entertainment center was silently auctioned for workers to bid on, and the proceeds went to a children's miracle network. And I'm honestly still blown away by the way this guy acted. Yeah, that's like really cringy behavior if you ask me. Like, this guy's screaming over an entertainment system that they clearly don't have. He doesn't have a receipt, he has no proof of purchase, he doesn't have the box it came in, literally nothing. If anything, he probably bought this from some other store years ago, and he's now like, "Hey, let me just return it to what I'm assuming is Walmart." Like, that's really weird behavior, and honestly, how did he think it was gonna go? But you know what? I think the original poster handled it well. I think I would definitely start laughing as well if this guy's voice was raising so much that he sounded like an angry Mickey Mouse about to take down anybody in front of them, because that truly sounds hilarious. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Today, I need to confess that I slept with my best friend's fiance, and even though they're on the verge of getting married, I've decided that I'm going to take this secret all the way down to my grave, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I met my best friend in high school, and we've been attached to the hip ever since. Although she moved some years ago, so we stopped hanging out and talking regularly, and that's still true to this day. We both have our own separate lives, especially now that we're adults. friends. The connection is still there, but there is a significant physical distance between us. Anyways, her fiance had hit on me a handful of times before, and every time I told her. It was a no-brainer. She was my best friend, and I would never keep something like that from her. She assured me it was nothing to worry about and told me that he'd done that before. It wasn't very reassuring to me, considering how serious they were, and this is right before they got engaged too, by the way, but I didn't want to overstep a boundary and berate her with things she already was aware of, and choosing just to turn a blind eye to it. Fast forward to a year or two ago, and he reaches out to me again, hitting on me. But this time, he's telling me things he wants to do with me, if you know what I mean, and I entertained it for a week or two, sent a couple of scandalous messages, but then blocked him because of how wrong it felt. And obviously, I didn't tell her about these exchanges. Well, sometime after I blocked him, they got engaged. And although I expressed happiness to my friend, I was worried about their future considering his past actions, especially towards me. Some months passed and eventually I unblocked him. I don't remember why, but I'm sure it was a mix of curiosity and anxiety about her questioning why he could no longer get in contact with me. I mean, I wasn't sure why he needed to, but the only reason we got in contact to begin with was because my friend wanted us to be acquainted. Now, I'm not sure how, but he immediately noticed that I had unblocked him and started to message me. We began talking again, and eventually, after some months, I made plans to go visit my friend. She had reached out to me somewhat recently and wanted to hang out, and her fiance expressed that he was more than excited to have me over as well. I went over and we shared several glances, as well as a couple discreet conversations while she was away. At one point, he had followed me to their bathroom and begged me to spend some quality time with him, if you know what I mean. Now, I failed to mention up until this point that he doesn't necessarily attract me, so a lot of his advances really weirded me out on the inside, but I was so caught up in the attention and the scandal that it just didn't seem to matter to me. We waited until my last day when it was time for me to go home, and then we met at a discreet location. He came over to my car, we moved into the back seat, and I think the rest can explain itself. He left, I went home, and I felt dazed for the entire drive home. I feel guilty now, months later, every time I think about it, but surprisingly, not enough to ever tell her. I think this is the sort of thing that I will probably take to my grave. I shouldn't have been so heartless that I did that, but I don't have the guts to ever tell her what happened. He wants to do it again before they get married, but I keep leaving his messages on read. I don't want to block him again, but I never want to scheme behind my friend's back with him ever again. Some of the things he's told me would make her stomach turn, and I would know because it makes mine turn, and I'm not even the one he's cheating on. My only hope is that one of them miraculously calls it off before the wedding. I've encouraged him multiple times to do so, but he always says that he just can't do it, and that even though they aren't completely right for each other, he still can't stop with going through with the marriage. So please, hold off any harsh judgment. I can assure you that I know how heartless it was for me to do such a thing, especially as I've been cheated on many times before, but I just needed to admit this somewhere because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I know you're not looking for harsh judgments, but I'm gonna judge you very harshly right now, and I can honestly say that what you're doing is awful. Like, this altogether is completely disgusting and so wrong, especially right before she's about to get married. And if you have any common sense about you, you would put aside your own ego and pride and just tell this lady exactly what happened. Because in my opinion, if he's doing this with you, who knows who else he's trying to do this with? You just happen to be the person that unblocked him. And I've got to say, your way of justifying this behavior is so wrong. You passed this off as if this was something that your friend already knew about, but then took it to another level when you messed around with him. Not to mention all the sketchy messages that you've been sending him as well. Like when your friend questioned you about why he could not get in contact with you, that would have been the perfect moment to be like, okay, this is what's going on, and this is why I decided to step away from him. But instead, you're choosing to stay silent and just go along with this, even though you went to visit your friend, probably not even wanting to see your friend, but instead wanting to mess around with your best friend's fiance. So yes, you're a massive jerk for doing this, and I think your friend has every right to know, because she's about to make a lifetime commitment with a jerk who will openly and easily cheat on her at the drop of a hat, and she does not deserve to deal with that in the slightest. Am I the jerk for not wanting my boyfriend to go to another country on vacation with his female coworker who I have never met? Because right now, he is being very defensive, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My boyfriend and I have been together for a little over 2 years. Lately, he has been talking about traveling and going on this trip to South America with his coworkers. And yes, it's multiple coworkers. And this has been an idea for about 2 weeks, maybe even less. He said his coworkers have family there that could show him around and even give him a place to stay in the meantime. Well, today he asked if he should just say screw it and book the ticket because it's super cheap. And he also wouldn't have to worry about finances for for a place to stay. I said, I mean, why not? And when I asked him who would be going on this trip, he said his coworker, who we will call Becca. Becca is not her real name. I proceeded to ask how old she was, and he said she was in her 30s. Now, he is 27 and I'm 26 for the record. Now, I felt immediately uncomfortable. For starters, I've never met a coworker with that name, and he has been working there for about a year, which means I have been at his workplace numerous times. I'm also seeing this as a fact that they are pretty close, especially considering meeting up with someone overseas and being so gracious as to offer a place to stay. Which, by the way, he said they wouldn't be staying together and that she would just be showing him around. Now, I'm also looking at it from a woman's perspective, and I would never invite a male coworker to a vacation overseas or a vacation period, no matter how long I've been working with them, especially alone. I mean, you never know someone's true intention. That is just my opinion and view on it, and I'm not speaking for all women. I told him I am uncomfortable with it, and he immediately got defensive and said I'm not supporting his first international trip alone, that I shouldn't look at it that way, and that it's strictly platonic. It was also mentioned that I have not made it a priority to travel, which I do not get paid well, and I also have a child and a bunch of expenses that I'm just trying to keep myself above the water, so to say. So that is why traveling has not been my priority right now, and the key word here is right now. So now I don't know what to do. I am very uncomfortable with it. And yes, I feel bad for holding him back from traveling or not supporting his trip, especially because he's been wanting to travel for a while now. I don't want to control his life, but I do know if the roles were reversed, he would be feeling very uncomfortable with it as well. I get yearning to travel. I mean, I yearn to travel as well, but this is very uncomfortable for me. So I don't know. Am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk at all. I see completely where you're coming from, and I think you're being completely rational. Now, if you went along with him on this trip and stayed with him while this friend is like showing you around their home country, then sure, that's completely fine. I would have no problem with that because I would also be there present for the vacation itself. But for the opportunity for him to be alone with this lady that you don't know and you've never met or had any conversation with or had the chance to like get a gauge for who she is, that just seems super sketchy and it just does not sit well with me. And I completely reject the notion that you're somehow like insecure about him traveling because this just crosses a weird line in my opinion. So no, you are not the jerk for expressing this discomfort because in my opinion, the way he's going about doing this is really sketchy. And I think if I was in your shoes, I would feel the exact same way. Am I the jerk for not respecting my roommate's curfew that she inflicted on me, claiming that she wants me back by 12 o'clock since showing up any later would be a massive disruption of her sleep schedule? Because right now, I really don't know what to do. Okay, so I'm in a fight with my roommate and my friend suggested I get additional opinions on here. For some background, I'm a freshman in college living in a dorm and I got a randomly assigned roommate. We live very different lifestyles. I like to stay up late and sleep in late, and she likes to go to bed early and wake up early. At the beginning of the year, she told me she likes to go to bed early and she is a light sleeper, and I told her that I like to stay up late. And we came to the agreement that she could turn out the light at any point and that I would be quiet after that. She goes to bed between 9 and 11 o'clock p.m., and I often get ready for bed and lay in bed at these times just out of respect. However, there are generally 2 to 3 nights a week, one of which is a weekday, that I stay up and out past this time. I keep the light off and I do nothing more than crawl into bed when I return home between 12 o'clock and 3 o'clock in the morning. Well, about 3 weeks ago, my roommate told me she doesn't like me staying out late because it affects her sleep and that she wants me back by 12 o'clock. My friends have made fun of me since then because out of respect for her, I have, for a few exceptions, left parties, study sessions, and hangouts early to go home on time. Fast forward, and on Monday night, I was out playing board games with friends and I lost track of time. I noticed it was 12:30, and out of respect for her, I decided to pull an all-nighter with my friends in the common room. I returned that morning at 8:15 to get ready and shower because I had a meeting at 9. However, I got an angry text later that day calling me out for returning at 8:15 despite me doing my best to remain quiet and even not returning home at an unreasonable hour, as I would have been up at that time anyways. I responded and apologized for waking her up, but explained that I stayed out all night for her and I did nothing wrong. I also explained that while I was willing to compromise and be back most nights at midnight, as long as I was courteous, there would be nights I would come back later. I then got a message last night that she had scheduled a meeting with our RA to mediate, and I honestly want to know if I'm in the wrong or if she's in the wrong, or if this is just a bad situation, because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I'm gonna say this as nicely as I can, but your roommate is completely delusional. You pay tuition, room, and board, and you are literally free to come and go as you please. boundaries, just as much as your roommate is. Like, you can literally do whatever you want. This lady does not rule your life, and she cannot make rules for you. So if you want to come back at 8:15 in the morning or at 3 o'clock in the morning and quietly come back to your bed, then guess what? You can do that, and she can't do anything about it. So this weird, controlling, like passive-aggressive attitude she has literally does not have a foot to stand on, because I guarantee you when you get in that meeting with the RA, she's not going to complain about you coming in late at night. She's going to try and make this sound like you're making a lot of noise and that you're somehow disturbing her peace, which from the sounds of it, that's definitely not happening. I don't know if there's an option at your university to get a different roommate or like have some way of switching things around, but I would definitely look into that sooner than later, because your roommate sounds like a complete delusional idiot, and she has no right to try and control your life in the slightest. My sister is getting a divorce and asked to stay with me without giving a clear timeline of how long she would stay, and I'm now at a point where I really need to know how long she's expecting to live with me and my husband, because at this point I'm seriously not sure how to bring this up. So my sister and her partner have been rocky for years and are deciding to officially split up. I won't air out their details as it is their business, but it was a mutual agreement to get a divorce. She texted me yesterday asking if she could come stay with me and my husband, and came over as soon as I said absolutely. For reference, things got heated and her ex-partner told her to leave. My husband was okay with it, as he is very supportive, but we never really discussed how long she needed to stay. I, of course, want to be there for her any way that I can, but me and my husband have personally and rather recently gone through some hardships, and hosting a guest for an extended period of time is a lot for us right now. So it really makes me question what the best way of opening up this conversation would be. I don't want her to feel unwanted, as she is my sister, and I do love her very much, and I want to help her and be supportive in any way that I can. I'm happy she was comfortable enough to come to me in a situation like this, so I really don't want to ruin that by coming off rude in any way. Things are obviously fresh, so letting things settle is the first plan. But after our talk last night, her ex-partner is planning on moving out late May and is currently filing for divorce. And although she didn't ask me, we wouldn't be able to host her that long, and I'm not sure the best way to go about letting her know. Now, as some side notes, we have been no contact with our parents for a few years. They were awful and essentially ruined any form of relationship me and my sister could have had together as kids. So we grew up never being close. We reconnected as adults and have worked through our childhood issues together, but we still aren't as close as other siblings usually are. So her staying with either of our parents just isn't an option. I'm the only family that she has, so this is a pretty delicate situation that I want to handle as respectfully as possible. What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, I think it wouldn't be a bad idea to open up a discussion and say exactly what needs to be said. Like, you can probably say this in a way where it's kind and nice, but also sets very clear boundaries about how long she can stay. And I personally don't think there's anything wrong with that. And I couldn't even begin to assume that she would somehow feel slighted by you saying, hey, we can help you out for right now, but based on circumstances in our life, we can't do it for long term, or something like that. Now, that's how I would handle it. Obviously, you know your sister way better than I or anybody else would, so there is probably some nuance here that maybe you can navigate and figure out as you go along. But setting up clear boundaries of like what you can do and like what kind of timeline you can expect is not a bad thing. Because while yes, what's going on in her life really is tragic, you do also have to think about your life. And if her staying long term just doesn't fit that criteria, then honestly, she definitely needs to know. Am I the jerk for snitching on one of my coworkers after they abandoned their job and left me completely alone? Because right now they're getting suspended, and at this point I don't know if I'm the one at fault. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I recently worked on a temp project at my job that required us to break into teams and work 12-hour shifts, and mine was from 7 o'clock p.m. until 7 o'clock a.m. Towards the end of the project, my partner was taken off for personal reasons and was replaced with someone else. Since this was towards the end, the person who sat on shift with me had no responsibility, and mostly their job was to sit at the station since it wasn't supposed to be unattended or just answer the phone if I was already on the phone. Well, the person who was put on shift with me showed up at 7 o'clock p.m. and everything was fine. At around 10 o'clock p.m., they say they're going to grab dinner and asked if I wanted anything. And I said no due to having already bought my food, and so they went to go get some food and they never came back. At around 1 o'clock in the morning, I'm starting to worry and I start calling and texting and I just get no answer. I try looking to see if maybe they were just like chilling in another office, but no, they were literally nowhere to be found. At around 4:30 in the morning, they finally answered and they say they were in the office asleep. And I know that wasn't the case because I had checked there multiple times. What made me mad was was that they actually started laughing, and they thought it was funny on top of the lie of actually being there. I said I couldn't believe they just left, and they said they would come back, but I responded by saying the shift was almost over. It was close to 5 in the morning, and the busy part was literally done. Though I still think they should have come back, and this person is one of my bosses, so I can't make the call to them not to come in or finish the shift, but eventually I get off the phone and I wait. And as you might be guessing, they really never did come back. And at this point, I'm just super angry. So every day of the temp project has been rough for the night shift, and one of the top supervisors for our team as a whole checks on me every day after my shift, so I decided to tell them what happened. How the person left me on shift after only doing, 3 hours of work? And when I said this, my supervisor was angry, and even more so because he personally asked this person to sit on the shift with me so that I can occasionally take a break or use the bathroom, but instead they just left. They literally just had to sit there and just be alive. So as a result, my supervisor gave him suspension that would cut his pay. Now, some important notes about this. The suspension will go in his work file, and it will follow him throughout his entire time in the company. The suspension will potentially make it hard to get promoted in the future, and according to my supervisor, this suspension was a culmination of bad behavior, but this incident was the straw that broke the camel's back. This person did not apologize at all, and my husband is friends with the guy, and they are still buddy-buddy due to my husband not wanting to add to the tension and hostility. Now, everybody, including my husband, says that I should have spoken to him directly instead of telling the supervisor, and apparently the loss in pay will affect him next month when he has his child support hearing. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. This guy abandoned his post. He clearly has a history of being an idiot at work, and this is just one of many instances where he's goofed off and not done his job. You're just one of probably many people who have been abandoned on the clock just so he can take a nap in the back office. And sure, of course he wants you to talk to him directly. That way he can probably just blow off anything you're gonna say and then try to spin it and get you in trouble. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. His supervisor was probably waiting for a moment like this, and any consequences that he incurs is quite literally his own fault and not yours in the slightest. My entitled in-laws are furious with me, complaining that they don't want to dress up for my Renaissance-themed wedding, claiming that I'm making everybody look like idiots all because I'm enforcing a dress code. And at this point, I'm not sure if I'm the jerk for asking people to dress a certain way at my wedding, because based on their reaction, I'm starting to seriously doubt myself. Here's what happened. I'm a 29-year-old female, and I'm getting married to my 30-year-old partner, and we've planned a fantasy and Renaissance-themed wedding. We are massive fandom nerds. We read books, we play video games, we love movies and comics, and we actually met at a Renaissance fair and wanted that to be a part of our wedding. We discussed it with our close friends, and everyone thought it was a great idea. So we sent out the invitations, plus an attached letter that explained why we wanted to have a themed wedding, and examples of the type of things that we wanted people to wear. We included photos, descriptions, budget categories that went from how to do it yourself all the way to just straight out buying something online. We also asked people to reach out if they had any worries so that we could work something out. Well, I've received a few messages from my closer friends saying that they've heard other people, including some of mine and my partner's family members, calling me a bridezilla, saying that we're being unreasonable, that this is ridiculous, and that they don't want to go if I'm going to get all up in arms over clothing. My soon-to-be mother-in-law and sister-in-law are especially angry. I reached out to them after their names were mentioned, and they said I am ruining what is supposed to be a happy day by demanding people dress up like idiots. They said everyone should be allowed to dress in whatever way makes them feel comfortable, and I'm just being very controlling. My partner says not to listen to them, but there are so many people saying it. I'm feeling pretty hurt by all of this. I assume people would react like this if I said everyone needed to go out and spend hundreds on costumes, but we went out of our way to include pictures and suggest as many very low budget options as possible. I honestly don't think it was a big deal, but now I'm having second thoughts about the whole theme wedding idea. Now, for some additional context, we put in the invitation that we don't expect or want people to buy us wedding gifts and would rather they keep their money for themselves or use it for the outfit. And one of the low budget options was things like a normal floral dress that many people already own, with the addition of like a flower crown or a belt or something like that. And it went up from there. For more meticulous stuff, it was like a linen shirt with a piece of fabric tied around your waist or a belt. It's quite low key, and I'm not super strict about any of it. I just didn't want anything like a cocktail dress or a formal suit and tie. Now, excluding my sister-in-law and my mother-in-law, our close closest family and friends haven't complained, and several people have said they are looking forward to it. It's more so cousins or aunts and uncles, or those types of level of friends, who have also not contacted us directly, but instead we're hearing about it through the grapevine. So honestly, am I the jerk for trying to have some kind of dress code at my wedding? What should I do? You are definitely not the jerk for having a dress code at your wedding. Like, your mother and sister-in-law are just being so overdramatic, as well as anybody else who has like some serious problem with this. It is not unheard of that people would have a theme and a dress code for their wedding. Like, that definitely happens all the time in every wedding around the world. And it really sounds like you've covered a lot of options that people can choose from if they're unsure of what to wear to the wedding. Like, this really does sound like a simple thing that can be accommodated, and honestly, I don't know why they would make such a big deal out of it. And honestly, if you invited me to your wedding and you gave me these specific instructions for what to wear, I would have a lot of fun with it and I would absolutely show up. And it really seems like most people who are coming to your wedding kind of get that this is going to be a fun time. And this also feels way more memorable than anything else. Like, sure, a suit and tie or even just like a formal dress is fun for a wedding every now and then, but like, this clearly is something that's very unique, and I know if I was invited to this wedding, I absolutely would show up and have a great time. Like, how often do you get to go to a Renaissance-themed wedding? Like, that sounds awesome in my opinion. So truly, I think your sister-in-law and your mother-in-law are just being very stuck up, and they clearly just don't want to have fun, because your idea of having a Renaissance-themed wedding sounds amazing, and you are not out of line for having a dress code. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. My friend refuses to let me meet her boyfriend, and yet is almost demanding that she be friends with my fiance. And even though I've discussed this with her several times, I still feel like I make no progress in understanding exactly why she's acting this way. Because at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I met my friend back in 2019 during college. We were really good friends instantly, and we had so much in common. But since then, life has moved on, and we have both changed. And I really now just don't recognize her. The confident and bold girl I met isn't there anymore. My friend met her boyfriend back in 2022, and it's been horrible ever since. She's told me that she thinks that he's cheating on her, how emotionally awful he is towards her, and the way that he screams at her, and he's even encouraged her not to take birth control. So, from what she told me, I never had a liking towards this guy. But they always break up just to get back together again, so this guy literally isn't going anywhere. My friend goes from crying over what he says and does to being so happy in a state of euphoria. It's a constant up and down of emotions. I'm engaged to the person that I would love to call my soulmate. We have been together for 2 years, and when we first started our relationship, my friend told me how important it is that she befriends my fiance and that they have a good friendship. Now, I agreed and included her in some of our hangouts, and there have been many times I told her to let her boyfriend join us. I thought it's unfair to judge a person I've never met before, and I should just give him a chance. My friend always pushed off the idea of a double date, or would say that we should do it but never follow through. I mean, I know she would even go on a double date with her coworker, and I thought it was maybe because they had more in common because they worked together. I only met her boyfriend once, and it was very awkward. We were going shopping, and she told me that her boyfriend texted her that he's cold at work. Well, she ended up buying a $130 jacket, and we had to drop it off to him. Now, I tried to insist for her not to buy it just because of how expensive it is, but there was no getting through to her. She decided we had to drop it off at their work, as they work at the same place. When we got there, she told me to stay in the car, but I felt stupid staying behind, so I told her that's silly, and then I asked her if it really was a problem that I met this guy. But she kept arguing with me that I needed to stay in the car. He ended up coming out to us, and I told her it's awkward if I stay here. So I ended up meeting him, and he ignored her the entire time. He didn't thank her for the jacket, and he kept trying to talk to me. He asked me about myself and what I'm ordering when we have dinner. And trust me, it was very awkward. And then after that, my friend was crying in the car that he didn't thank her for the jacket and that he completely ignored her. For another example, I went out to dinner with her and her brother last Friday. She got into a bad argument with him and she was devastated. Like, no matter how much we tried to help her, she was inconsolable. After an hour, her mood changed and all was fine again. She told us she's dropping off dinner for her boyfriend, and then when we got to his place, she parked away from his house and told us it's best that we stay here. But then her brother said that it's rude towards her boyfriend if we park away from his house. Like, it could almost show that she's embarrassed of him or where he lives. She told her brother that he's right, and of course, we were told to wait in the car. For some additional information about me, my fiance and I have to do long distance for a bit due to visa reasons. We're doing the K1 fiance visa, so he'll be back anywhere from August to December. We have been apart since June, but I do go and visit him during my work vacations. My friend constantly mentions that when my fiance comes back, we have got to go out on a double date. She said it so many times that I don't think she's excited for me for when it comes to my fiance to come back, but rather just for her boyfriend to come out with us. I have told her that I'm fine and happy to go out with them and explained it could take a while for my fiance to come back, but she insisted that she would rather wait. She said it the other night that my fiance needs to come home so we can double date. So I asked her, well, why can't it just be us? Why do we have to wait for him? She said that she would rather wait so that everyone can be completely comfortable, but I don't even know what that even has to do with anything. I'm perfectly fine and comfortable to go out with them. Like, I don't need my fiance to have fun. The other factor is that he won't come back until about 6 to 8 months from now. My friend knows that, and when I tried explaining to her that it might take a while until he comes back, she just said to me, well, time moves fast, and before you know it, he'll be here. It just sounded stupid, so I didn't even try to carry on that conversation. I am really confused. She always mentions wanting to double date just for it to never happen. They have been together for 2 years, and I have never met this guy, but she puts such an importance on being friends with my fiance. She also double dates a lot with her coworker and their husband, and then she proceeds to tell me how amazing her double date was. I'm so tempted to ask her if she thinks that I'm an idiot, and I really want to ask if she's embarrassed of me or her boyfriend. I just don't know why she makes a big deal to have a good friendship with my fiance, but I can't even hang out with her or her boyfriend, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, honestly, it really seems like the friend in this situation wants to go on double dates simply because there will be another man at that date. It sounds like her boyfriend is like a complete scumbag, and he would happily ask out any woman in front of him instead of like focusing on his actual girlfriend. Like, she probably just wants someone else around that is also a guy to try and keep this guy in check so he doesn't hit on you. Like, that's my take at least, but it really does seem like he is not being faithful, or he's just an awful person altogether, because their relationship does not sound healthy in the slightest. My sister lives with me and my fiance, and she doesn't respect my home at all. And right now I'm at my breaking point dealing with her, and I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So for a bit of background, my sister has lived with us for a few years. In June of 2023, we purchased our first home, and before that, we lived in a couple of different apartments, and she lived with us then as well. And I really need advice on how to handle this situation in the best way, all without ruining my relationship with my sister and the rest of my family. For as long as I can remember, my sister has really struggled with keeping her room clean. It has gotten increasingly worse since she moved out of our parents' house and in with me. She cannot seem to keep it clean no matter what I did, and both my mom and I have tried talking to her about it, but she always has excuses as to why it's dirty. She is in college and has a job, but does not contribute financially. In fact, my parents pay for her to live with us. We supply anything that she could ever need to clean her room and her clothes, and she does not have to purchase detergent or anything else for that matter. Now, when I say dirty, I don't mean just clothes on the floor and clutter. She will leave food in her room and empty food containers or other food-related trash in her room for weeks. She will have cups that have grown mold from how long they're left in there. There are trash bags full of food-related items and trash in there a good majority of the time. If she left clothes on the floor, I really wouldn't be too concerned. My concern is having bugs in the house from all the food, or even mold growing somewhere. She also will take food of mine and eat it and leave it in her room, or go to bed and take my personal belongings from the kitchen and just never return them. I constantly find myself looking for things that she has taken and not returned. I honestly feel like it's extremely disrespectful and rude to behave that way, but I have tried to be understanding because I do think she is struggling mentally or has ADHD or some other disorder that is causing this. Anytime you try to talk to her about it, she just shuts down and doesn't end up cleaning or anything else. I have pushed for her to go to therapy for years, but you can't force someone to do something they don't care to do. It's gotten to the point where I have confronted my mom for help, and I even had her schedule a therapy appointment for my sister. So she finally has an appointment for June, and I'm hoping this will end up helping, but I'm just not sure that it will. I understand that it's my house and I make the rules or whatever, but I really have no leverage. I can't physically make her clean her room, and it seems like she is actively avoiding cleaning by making herself busy with other things. If I make her move out, her living situation will only get worse because I keep all the common areas clean. She is only responsible for her room and can't even manage that. I have cleaned her room for her in the past, only for it to be trashed just days later. I also clean the bathroom that she uses because it would be a filthy mess if not. Now again, it is my house, so I don't mind cleaning the bathroom so much, but I do feel like it would be common courtesy to at least try to keep it a little bit clean. I am getting increasingly frustrated, and I feel helpless in my own home. I have thought of removing her door from the hinges, but I don't think that is a healthy or mature thing to do. But I am just at a complete loss. I don't know what to do for someone that won't help themselves get the help that they need. I have offered to help her find someone to talk to or go with her and everything else, but she just keeps putting it off, and it's now been years. And right about now, I'm at my breaking point, and I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, I seriously need to question a few things you said, because you said, okay, it's my house, but I don't have any leverage. Like, what are you talking about? Of course you have leverage. This is your home. You have full control over who does and does not live here. And I'm not saying you need to kick her out or anything like that, because I think this is a nuanced situation that only you can figure out. But if she does want to live there, if I was in your shoes, I would lay some very basic ground rules. I would tell her that if her room isn't clean, then she's gotta go. If she's not contributing to the household, then she also has to go. Like, there's no reason for you to be held hostage by your sister not cleaning her room. Like, are you just gonna keep cleaning up after her for the rest of her life? And is she gonna live in your house for the rest of your life? Because here's how I see it, at least. She is not respecting your home in the slightest. She doesn't contribute financially despite having a job, and it sounds like the parents are bankrolling the fact that she gets to live with you instead of them. And based on the way she lives, I'm kind of seeing why that's happening. So in my opinion, I don't think it's unreasonable to set expectations for your sister who is a roommate. Because in my opinion, by doing nothing to try and get things figured out, you're no longer helping her, but instead enabling her. And in my opinion, you should not have to deal with that in the slightest. Would I be the jerk if I tell my friend that her son is not welcome to stay in my house unless he is responsible for himself? Because my last experience with him was very frustrating, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so for a bit of context, I'm a 31-year-old female, and my best friend is a single mom with a 14-year-old boy. She has low contact with her parents because they kicked her out when she got pregnant in high school, so she does not have a big support system. We are really close, and I've always done what I could to help her. Her son is my nephew, not in blood, but in every other way that counts. She does everything for her son, and I honestly mean everything. He doesn't even pick up his plate from the table after he finishes eating. She just does it for him. While I personally don't think this is a good way to raise a child, I never gave her my opinion, and she never asked for it. It's honestly none of my business how she decided to raise her child, and I'm not a mom, so how can I give parenting advice? Last week, my friend had to take a 2-day business trip and had another one scheduled for next week. She asked me if her son could stay at my house the days that she's out of town, because she doesn't feel comfortable leaving him in their house. I agreed, and he stayed with me for 2 days last week. Well, those 2 days were a frustrating experience for the both of us, because he kept expecting me to do everything for him, including packing his bag for school, picking up his clothing whenever he dropped them, serving him cereal in the morning, washing his dishes, and waking him up in the morning to go to school. He even blamed me because he missed the school bus because I didn't make sure that he woke up before his alarm rang. I mean, I heard his alarm, but I assumed he was awake. I am not eager to repeat this experience. I love that child, but he is too old for this, I think. Besides, I have a demanding job. I don't have the time or the energy to be the maid or babysitter of a teenage boy, even if it's just for 2 days. I'm thinking about telling my friend that if she wants her son to stay with me next week, he has to be responsible for himself. I can promise to cook him 3 meals a day, and I can make sure he is up for school, but he needs to pick up his own clothing, pack his own bags, and wash his own dishes. Otherwise, he just can't stay. I don't feel this is unreasonable, but I kind of feel bad for putting down these conditions, because she doesn't have a big support system, and if I don't let him stay at my house, it'll be really hard for her to find somewhere else to drop him off. So honestly, would I be the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, I don't think you would be the jerk at all, in my opinion. I think it's completely reasonable to set up some kind of expectations between you and this kid, because at the end of the day, this is your house. You do set the rules, and this is something that you can enforce. So going to the mom and saying, hey, it was fine having him for those 2 days, but if he wants to stay here again, then he needs to start pulling his weight. And honestly, I don't care how he's raised at home. If he is going to be staying at your house, then he has to go by your rules. Like, that's just common courtesy, and it's kind of expected. If you're going to someone else's house, then you have to follow what they want you to do in their home. Because the way this 14 17-year-old was acting is completely inappropriate in your home, and there is no reason you should have to be his maid all because he doesn't want to do stuff. Am I the jerk for warning my friend about a coworker of mine who only goes on dates to try and get free meals out of men? Because right now, my female coworker is furious with me after she had to pay a $70 bill she was expecting my friend to pay. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 28-year-old male and I work with this woman that we will call Linda. Linda is not her real name. And let me just say that Linda has a very annoying habit. She has a dating profile that she uses specifically to lure guys in just to buy her expensive dinners at restaurants she wants to try, and then she ghosts them. Linda brags about this all the time and is never interested in actually dating, but she'll act like it just to sell it. Now, I can't stand this because it's obviously playing with people's hearts, but Linda thinks it's a life hack to try food or drinks she otherwise couldn't afford. My friend we will call Donald is not his real name, is also on dating sites, but he is there for the right reasons. His late wife passed away a few years ago, and he has just started jumping back into the dating scene. Donald is a very sweet guy, and I really want him to find a great lady. A few days ago, he texted me asking if I knew Linda, because wouldn't you guess it, they matched up and got to talking about work, which is how he found out we worked at the same place. So I told him all about Linda's BS with the restaurant thing, and made it very clear to him that he would do best to drop things with her early on. Donald said that he would probably still do the date, but asked for separate checks. Well, they went out this past weekend, and on Monday, Linda came into work very upset. I asked her how the date with Donald went, and she ripped into me. She was asking me if I was the one who told him not to pay for her dinner. Apparently, she had Donald take her to a high-end steakhouse, and she ended up splurging. She got a drink, a full entree with a side and dessert, whereas Donald ended up just getting a sandwich and a salad. Her bill alone came out to about $70, and she was almost in tears at work as she didn't expect to pay for it, and now her car was low on gas. Now, I got a little upset too, as she tried to use my friend as a literal meal ticket, but somehow she doesn't see it that way. Donald told me later that the date was going kind of well until he asked for separate checks, because then suddenly Linda got very weirdly cold. Now Linda's mad at me because I told someone about her little tactic and it backfired on her. I don't feel I did anything wrong since it was a grieving friend I was protecting, but some other people we work with said that I should have stayed out of it because it was none of my business. So I need to know, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? There's no way you are the jerk in this situation. Linda finally got exactly what she deserved. She was using guys just to try and get some kind of free meal out of their date. She didn't care about dating at all. She just wanted free food from pretty much anybody around her. Like, that is really messed up, and you can't just do that to people and expect to get away with it. Like, if I was in the original poster's shoes, I would have told Donald immediately as well. Like, I would not want this very nice guy to get screwed over by this lady who's just using him. And I love the fact that she racked up a $70 bill for dinner. Like, this is karma working its magic in a beautiful way. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Anyone who says that you are the jerk is completely wrong, and in my opinion, Linda got exactly what she deserved. A shady, sketchy car dealership tried to scam me out of the car I was trying to buy after I flew out to their dealership just to get it. But after being confronted with this bait and switch, the entitled general manager of this location mockingly told me that if I didn't like it, then I should just leave a bad review online. So I decided to get some revenge and maliciously comply, resulting in them losing about $50,000 over the next 2 to 3 years. And I've honestly never been happier to watch karma take its course. Here's what happened. So the city I live in has extremely inflated vehicle values, especially compared to the surrounding areas. If you buy the same car from a neighboring state, you can often save about $4,000 without even really trying. When I buy a new vehicle, which happens about every 3 to 4 years, I always look in the surrounding states just to compare pricings. This story happened about 5 years ago, and the malicious compliance is still ongoing to this day. I was shopping for a brand new car, and I found one that matched my specifications about 12 hours away in a neighboring state, and it was priced about $5,000 below what I was seeing. After looking up flights, there was a one-way direct flight that took me to their local airport for about $175. Now, if I include the gas money that I'm going to use to drive back, I was looking at a total of maybe $275, which would save me about $5,000 overall. So I knew it was absolutely worth it in this situation. I reached out to the dealership, I negotiated for a little bit, and I agreed on a price. I let them know that I would be flying in to pick up the car, and I offered to pay in full in advance of the flight. They told me that all they needed was a $1,000 $3,000 deposit and that the car was considered mine. We signed a contract and I paid the deposit. And then I booked the flight for 3 days from then. But it's right about here that I saw my first signs that things have gone wrong. When I showed up at the airport, the dealership was supposed to pick me up as this had been arranged in advance. A quick phone call later and I ended up grabbing an Uber just to take me the 20 miles to the dealership with the promise of them covering the cost. And I thought to myself, okay, no big deal either way. Well, the second sign that things were going wrong was when I showed up to the dealership. The salesman that I had been speaking with asked me if I wanted to walk the lot with him to look for a few cars. And yes, he said cars as in multiple cars. Questioning what he meant by this, we walked into the lot to see all these cars that he was talking about. Now, were these some special type of gold inlaid, full self-driving, full self-flying amazing mobiles? No, they were definitely not. When I point blank asked to see the car that I was buying, you know, the one with a specific VIN number in the signed contract with a deposit on it, I was told it was no longer available. So the salesman offered to show me similar cars, which would have been fine if we were able to come to some similar terms on pricings. But all these cars were outrageously priced. They were way too expensive for my taste. Fast forward about 2 to 3 hours, and I'm now convinced this dealership never had this specific car on the lot, and that this was 100% a bait and switch gone wrong. The dealership was unwilling to sell me a similar vehicle at a similar price to our negotiated one. We were about $5,000 apart, and they were unwilling to pay for the flight costs for this bait and switch scenario. A heated discussion ensued between myself and the general manager, where he finally said to me, "Go ahead, leave a bad review," but then stated that I wasn't getting any free money from him. I took an Uber to a nearby hotel and I booked a flight home the next day, costing me in total about $750. So this is where my malicious compliance comes into play. You see, this dealership had an average Google rating of right around 4.5 stars and had around 400 total reviews, so it supposedly was a pretty good dealership. Well, that night while I was sitting in the hotel room, I had some time to burn, so I spent a couple of hours creating new email accounts just so that I can leave multiple reviews for this dealership. And after all was said and done, I had left around 20 one-star reviews over the course of that night, and then sort of stopped caring about the reviews. At this point, my focus shifted to recovering my lost travel expenses. A few days after getting back, I sent the dealership a demand letter for $750, which they very promptly ignored. Since we had done the original contract with the deposit in both states, I was allowed to file a small claims court to sue in my state, which is exactly what I did. The dealership never showed up to court, and I received a default judgment for $750, and I did collect that, by the way. It took a few certified letters, a few phone calls, and about a year, but I did get a check for $750. As you can imagine, I was still not a happy camper. What they had done was wrong on so many levels. All my friends knew the story about how these people tried to bait and switch me, and the fact that I flew to the dealership on a one-way ticket only made it much worse. So they had all left a bad review or two, but nothing more than a normal mad customer. Now, I don't know how this next part started or how it ended up lasting as long as it has, but at some point I had some time on my hands, and I left a bad review for this dealership. And I left just one. Not two, not three, only one. In doing so, I noticed that all the reviews I had left right after leaving the dealership were gone. They were probably taken down for being fake, or because I left so many at the same time and the dealership reported them. I wanted to make sure this dealership wouldn't do this to someone else, so the next day I checked to make sure that one bad review that I had just left was still there. And when I checked, it was. And since I was thinking about it, I went ahead and created another account and left another one-star review. Well, fast forward 2 to 3 years later, and it has now become a habit. Every time I have a few minutes to spare, I create a new account and leave a one-star review for this dealership. Their current rating is 1.9 stars with nearly 3,000 total reviews, and I am personally responsible for at least half of those reviews. When you open the dealer's website, one of the large banners that flashes across the screen advertises that you will get $50 for a 5-star review. By showing your review to the salesman, they'll give you a $50 Visa gift card. It has been this way since about a year after this bait and switch occurred, and right around the time the 1-star reviews began to accumulate. Now, assuming I'm responsible for half of their reviews, and the fact that the dealership only has about 3,500 total reviews, they have paid $50 per review for at least 1,000 reviews, and likely more than that, meaning they have implemented a policy to pay for reviews and have spent about $50,000 doing so. And even with this incentive, they still have seen their average rating drop consistently ever since telling me to go ahead and and leave a bad review. And honestly, they got exactly what they deserved. Wow, that is insane that they bait and switched you like that. I think I would lose my mind if I got there just for my car not to be there. Like seriously, you paid a deposit and you literally took a one-way flight out there just to get the stupid car and drive it back. Like that's an entirely different level of sketchy. It's just not even funny. And the fact that the general manager didn't even have a heart. Like you trusted him and he completely just blew you off, instead trying to sell you a more expensive car just because they got you on the lot. That's super disrespectful, and in my opinion, it completely justifies all the actions that you did, because they really set out some bad karma into the universe, and they basically brought this onto themselves. But I think overall, the way you got back at these people and the way you played the long game, in my opinion, is completely hilarious, as these people absolutely had it coming. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to amithejerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Am I the jerk for refusing to let my stepson and his newly pregnant girlfriend move into my place with my wife? Because right now, my wife and I are having a fight over this, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. My wife and I have been married for around 3 years. We don't have any kids together, but she has 2 kids from a previous relationship. She has a 21-year-old daughter and a 19-year-old male. For reference, we're both in our 40s. Now, I have decent relationships with her kids, but due to their ages when I met their mom, I never assumed a father-type role, and they never expected me to fill that for them. Their biological dad is involved in their lives, and we all get along pretty well. My stepdaughter is at college, so we don't really see her very often. My stepson Joe lives a few hours away from us with his girlfriend, and he works full-time. A couple of weeks ago, Joe called my wife and asked if he and his girlfriend could visit. My wife was very excited because she hadn't seen Joe in a while, but Joe never visits for fun. It's almost always when he needs something, and he knows that my wife has a harder time saying no if he asked her in person. So I wasn't surprised at all when Joe and his girlfriend excitedly told us that they found out they were expecting and that his girlfriend is 9 weeks pregnant. After the initial excitement and tears from my wife, Joe dropped the question I knew that was coming. They want to move in with my wife and I while they get their feet underneath them because their current one-room apartment isn't big enough for a baby. My wife looked at me and must have sensed my hesitation because she said this is something that we all need to discuss first to make sure it will work. Joe and his girlfriend agreed and told us to ask them anything. My wife asked a few questions about whether or not this was planned and what their plans are besides moving in with us. Joe and his girlfriend started talking about how their apartment could work if absolutely needed, but it's tiny and there's no separate room for the baby. They could also save a lot of money by living with us and get a better place sooner than that. Then Joe's girlfriend said that it wasn't planned, but they are both excited to be parents. She said that she had to switch birth control due to a hormonal imbalance and that Joe hates to use protection and this just kind of happened. Now, Joe then made some really inappropriate jokes about using protection, and I had been mostly quiet up to this point, but after Joe made that joke, I spoke up. I told them that it sounds like both of them knew that the girlfriend was in a transition period with birth control, and they knew this sort of thing could happen, and yet they still chose to be stupid about it. I told them they are idiots if they think I'm gonna be okay with them moving in with us, especially with a baby when this situation was completely preventable by them not being dumb. Joe's girlfriend started crying, and my wife and Joe immediately started consoling her. My wife scolded me for being too harsh and that we all still have a lot to talk about. Well, my wife and I have been fighting about this ever since. She thinks that we need to help in any way that we can, but I think that since Joe and his girlfriend were dumb enough to get themselves into this, I don't want to end up being responsible for a baby when they inevitably do something dumb again. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I don't think you're the jerk at all. I think them moving in with you is a complete mistake, and I would not want to deal with that in the slightest, because I think the original poster's onto something. It really does sound like Joe and his girlfriend are just incredibly irresponsible. Like if they didn't want a kid, they very much should have used protection, and that really is their own fault. And for them to be like, ooh, can we move in with you? It's not because they want to have a better place. It's because they are in over their heads and they don't know what to do. So they're hoping that mom and dad can step in and try to help with this situation, which I just don't think is going to add up. Like think about it. If they move to where you live right now, they're going to have to quit their jobs to do that. And unless they work remotely or something like that, I can really see them becoming such a massive nuisance in your life. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. It seems like they're having a big wake-up call about the realities of becoming a parent, and if they didn't want that to happen, then they really should have been more careful. Am I the jerk for not wanting either of my future sister-in-laws as my bridesmaid at my future wedding? Because honestly, these people have been rude to me for such a long time. But right now I'm being argued against by my fiance and his family to change my mind and allow them to be my bridesmaid. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. My fiance and I have been together for nearly 8 years, and we've been engaged for a little over 1 year. We've also been living with each other since 2021, and around this time, an animosity between his parents and one of his sisters started to develop. We've had some ups and downs, usually starting a down period when I say or do something they don't like or agree with, such as having some kind of boundary. Now, I could list every infraction over the last few years and end up with an encyclopedia level of volumes where 99% of those would make you laugh. But these down periods have usually ended up making a compromise, which more or less has me having to make a 180-degree turn just to try and keep the peace. Now, none of these boundaries are unreasonable, by the way. For example, I would ask them not to turn up at our house unannounced or uninvited, or to only invite us to dinner over the weekend. We work an average of 12-hour shifts on the weekdays, and this is just to name a couple. However, these two in particular cause the most grief because apparently it means that I don't like them. Now, when it comes to planning for our wedding, we're having a small ceremony maxing out at about 50 people. We agreed we only wanted a small wedding party with 2 bridesmaids, 2 groomsmen, no page boys or flower girls, and I only chose my sister as a maid of honor and a close friend as my bridesmaid. We sent out the save the dates, and my fiance handed his personally to his family. Well, no sooner had he done that, had his mother gotten in his face and demanded to know why neither of his sisters were in the bridal party. My fiance mentioned that we were originally going to elope, but felt that this excluded family, so we opted for a small wedding. His mom then stated that she would prefer us to elope, and then said that I should remove my close friend as a bridesmaid and have one of his sisters instead. Now, originally, he had no problem with not having his sisters as bridesmaids, but now he's seeming to have changed his mind. But I think that his mom getting in his face has caused some emotional conflict in his mind, and he just wants to keep her happy. Now, because I usually have to give in to any of their demands, I don't want to change our arrangements, and I want this aspect to remain solely my choice. And it's also more to the point that I've never asked him to include one of my brothers as a groomsman in his party. That is completely his choice. But now this has caused a whole argument where I'm being called a jerk and spiteful because I don't want to give in. I've always been told that the wedding is about the couple, and it's not their responsibility to keep everybody happy with their choices. And given their history, I can't trust that they'll get their way this one time and then not demand more changes the closer we get to the date. So I don't think I'm being unreasonable, right? I mean, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? You're not the jerk at all, and it seems like your soon-to-be in-laws and extended family are incredibly entitled and love to just trample all over your plans. Like if it somehow doesn't appeal to them, then they don't want to hear about it and they want it changed, with your fiance being the key to that problem. He clearly is easily guilt-tripped by his mom or his sisters, and he will just start changing things just to make them happy, when in reality he should be trying to make you happy. Like, this all sounds super obnoxious and I would hate to have to deal with these people. So it kind of makes sense as to why you would want to elope. Like, this just doesn't seem like it's worth the trouble, and if anything, it seems like it's just a massive headache across the board. So no, I don't think you're the jerk. I think it's a great idea for you to say, nope, this is my wedding, you don't get a say in it. Because it really seems like with these people, if you give them an inch, they will take 7 miles. And in my opinion, I think it's better to set this boundary now than have to deal with this for the entirety of your life. The mother of my daughter's friend demands that we get in a relationship together, or else she's going to ruin the friendship that my daughter and her daughter have finally cultivated. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. Okay, so I'm a widower with a 12-year-old daughter. My wife passed away 6 years ago, and it was super hard on both me and my daughter. I've been focused on being a single parent and a father, and I'm trying to be the best that I can be. And with the support from family plus therapy for the both of us, we are managing okay. And I do know that it was very hard for my daughter to make friends for a while after this all happened. For the past 2 years, she's had this really good friend. They are pretty much inseparable. I've seen the difference this friend has made to my daughter's life, and it's been amazing. The friend has a mother who is also a single parent, and we started interacting more than a year ago when our daughters got closer, and I thought we were pretty good friends. Well, a few weeks ago, she told me that she had feelings for me. Now, I do not feel the same way, unfortunately. She's a great person, but I just don't feel that way about her, and I was honest about it. Well, when I said that, she did not take it well, and I empathized. I think we've all been there. But in the past 2 weeks, she asked me again. She said things like, "Oh, I just want you to give me a chance," and how she feels we would be great together, and that it would be good for the kids. And then 2 days ago, she said she might have to restrict her daughter daughter from being friends with mine because it's a painful reminder to her about me. So I'm now at a point where I really don't know what to do. Her friend cutting off contact will set my daughter back and really mess with her, and I will feel 100% responsible for that. But on the other hand, being forced into a relationship feels so wrong and so weird. I mean, it's not fair to anybody. So right now I'm at a loss and I seriously don't know what to do. I'm sorry, but the mom in this story sounds insane. Seriously, think about what she's saying to you. She's giving you an ultimatum. Either you date her and get in a relationship with her, or else she's gonna take away this friend that your daughter really likes. And now you're somehow convinced that would be your fault? Like, no, this is not your fault. This would be entirely her fault for being crazy. You can't just force someone to be in a relationship with you and then turn around to try and ruin something in your life all because you said no. Like, it kind of makes sense as to why she's single in the first place. So if I was in your shoes, I would definitely be creating some distance between myself and this crazy lady. And if this lady wants to try and like ruin the friendship between your daughter and her daughter, then all of that is literally her fault. And you are definitely not to blame in the slightest. Am I the jerk for body shaming my stepsister in front of everybody? Because right now she is very upset with me. And at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So I'm a 22-year-old female and I lost 90 pounds of weight. Last week, my boyfriend and I visited my parents for dinner. Now, I don't normally visit because it's a 3-hour drive, so it's a once or twice a year kind of thing. The first thing that people complimented me on was my weight. My mom, who knew of me trying to manage my pre-diabetes, congratulated me on getting things under control. Meanwhile, my stepsister, who is 40 years old, said that I look so much better now. But I said I don't want to talk about how I look. I then decided to help my mom cook. Well, my stepsister would occasionally walk in to check in and would start again on how I look. She would say things like, "See, losing weight was the best. I bet guys are talking to you more now." Or she would say, "You used to have such wider shoulders. Now it's skinnier. It looks really good." Every time I just grew more and more uncomfortable. My mom tried to tell her off, but I just stopped her to avoid drama. Dinner happened and we all sat down. I was eating some flan, which is sweet and caloric, but not bad to eat very occasionally, and my stepsister made a face when she tried it. She commented that I should watch my weight. Now, this was the tipping point. I told her that I've asked her multiple times not to tell me how I look, and I asked her how she would like it if I kept mentioning her appearance. She said that she wouldn't mind. So I said to her, "Did you get a lot of compliments on your fake chest? I mean, it's great that you got bigger ones, your real ones were too small." Well, my stepdad is now furious, because for starters, she's broke and can barely pay her bills but spent money on surgery. And secondly, that dinner was ruined and an argument happened. After that, my boyfriend and I just left. I said goodbye to my mom and then I headed out, with my mom saying to me that we're not inviting my stepsister to dinner anymore. My stepsister then started spreading rumors about how much of a jerk I am and how I'm now egotistical just because I'm not as fat anymore. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you're definitely not the jerk. Your stepsister very clearly loved to kind of poke the bear and see how far she could get by talking about your weight. Like, first of all, that's really rude and that's completely inappropriate. So the fact that she got upset when you flipped the script and started talking about the way that she looks, in my opinion, is hilarious. This is hilarious proof to me that she can dish it, but she absolutely cannot take it. And the second the conversation is turned towards her, she suddenly is going to get really offended. So no, you're definitely not the jerk. Your stepsister had it coming, and if she's unhappy, then she shouldn't have started it in the first place. My Karen of a coworker thinks that she can bully me and throw a fit all because she's twice my age, claiming that I cut an attitude with her, even though I went out of my way to help her with her job. Because right now, I'm considering going to my supervising manager to explain to them exactly what's going on. But at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 23-year-old female, and I work the night shift as a CNA in a nursing home. And I don't know why the other CNA I worked with last night felt the need to target me last night, as it was my first time ever working with her. She very obviously singled me out looking for a problem. Now, I am a hard worker, and I have zero interest in any kind of drama. I come to work to take care of my patients, I get paid, and then I leave. Now, I may be overly bothered by this because I have anger problems that I worked hard on keeping in control due to some past issues in my life. And I know that I have to keep it together to be successful for my dream career, so I just need to vent. So this lady comes in a few minutes after me, and I don't recognize her, so I go out of my way to be helpful and ask her if she's familiar with the patients that she's assigned to, and then I give her the rundown of the patients and their needs and let her know where I'll be if she needs any help. After I finish checking on the people that I'm assigned to take care of that night, I sit down and start taking notes for a class I'm taking, and she comes up and asks me for help when it comes to repositioning a patient in bed that can't move on her own. So I drop what I'm doing and I go to help her out. Now, to reposition a patient, you first use the bed remote to lift the bed up above your waist so that you don't hurt your back bending over, and then you get someone on each side of the bed to lift them up and turn them. So we get to the ladies' room, and I grab the bed remote and start lifting it up, but it pauses for a second because of the shortage in the wire. So it takes me a little more than 2 seconds to reposition it to start lifting the bed just a little bit more. Well, the other CNA raises her voice at me while bobbing her head around with an attitude that the bed needs to be way higher than that. And I explained to her that I was trying to lift the bed, but it paused for a second and that I know how to do it. She then goes off on me about what I am and am not allowed to say to her, and acting so aggressive over nothing that even the patient and her roommate are looking at her confused and concerned. I didn't want to feed into her obvious attempts to make a scene, so I shrug it off and I finish helping her reposition the lady, and then I turn around and I walk out of the room and I go back to the nurse's station. Moments later, I get up to answer a call light, and when I'm walking back to the nurse's station, the other CNA is standing there, and before I make it back to my seat, she starts yelling at me about how she is 47 years old and she's a 20-year-old veteran of this career and that I better watch my mouth, and then just goes on and brings up my age several times and how she even has kids older than me, and was saying stuff like, I don't know what your problem is, but you will respect me. But the thing is, I literally did not disrespect this woman once, and even went out of my way to be nice to her. The whole time I kept repeating that I'm not going to argue with her and that I'm just here to do my job and that I don't care about her age or her work experience. I told her just to stop and that I'm not arguing with her multiple times, but eventually I just walked away because I felt myself starting to shake and my heart started to race, and I didn't want to go off and regret it later. Now, like I said, I have anger issues, so I get out of sight and I lock myself in a bathroom, shaking, trying to catch my breath while my heart is racing and pounding. I was nearly in tears because this woman was almost in my face about something stupid, and I couldn't just blow up on her about it, and I wanted to so badly. I get myself together, and once I stop shaking, I walk out of the nurse's station to the nurse who witnessed it all, and I told her what happened in the patient's room. Meanwhile, I can hear the other CNA talking loudly to the other nurse all the way down the other hall about how she didn't even do anything to that little girl, and all I did was ask for help. And this is all despite the fact that I dropped what I was doing to help her with 0 complaints. Then, for the rest of the shift, she was staring me down and gossiping with the other nurse, but then would get quiet and try to listen to my conversations with another nurse, even though it was all work-related. I'm even thinking about asking the supervisor of the nursing staff to watch the cameras at the nurse's station so they can see how she jumped down my throat when I was minding my own business, but I don't want to cause more problems. I probably sound so ridiculous for getting so worked up over someone acting like a child, but it really had me struggling to hold back, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Okay, this is the one thing I've learned about working in some kind of work environment, and it is this simple fact. You have every right to defend your good name and your own reputation against someone who is trying to slander you. And I can promise you, by letting this slide and doing nothing about it, this other coworker is only going to cause more problems in your career. She literally was looking for a fight. She saw you off to the side, and for whatever reason, she felt that she could pick a fight with you and ruin your day. And based on her attitude, I can see that she's only been in this job for 20 years. So with all that in mind, I think you absolutely should go to your manager and say, no, let's look at the cameras. Let's make this into a bigger problem than we need to, because this lady is going to slander your reputation. I only speak from experience in this regard, and this is just my opinion, but I've had coworkers like this who are so unhinged and unhappy with their life that they will happily try to tank your career if it somehow makes them look better or feel better. And this entitled Karen absolutely fits that bill. So in my opinion, I think you are well within your rights to step up to your manager and explain to her exactly what happened, how this lady's trying to spread a false narrative about you, and how she's saying disparaging things about you to other people. Because at the end of the day, this lady sounds like a bully, and it sounds like she's trying to harass you, and you do not deserve to put up with that for a single minute. If you like Am I the Jerk, you're probably going to love Am I the Genius. Check it out, link down below in the description. Also, go to AmITheJerk.com/submit if you would like to submit your own stories. Would I be the jerk to accept my estranged brother back into the family fold, all against my niece's wishes? Because right now, she's saying she will never talk to us again if we ever allow him back in our lives. And at this point, I don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my brother married a narcissistic woman, and he was what you would call the enabling parent. His wife scapegoated their oldest daughter, and he went along with it to keep the peace, and bought into his ex-wife's BS that it was the child's fault, and they were both emotionally awful towards her, literally her entire life. So I, my other sisters, and parents all knew she was bad news well before they got married, but he would hear none of it and was so enmeshed with this woman. She isolated him and the kids from all of us, so we didn't get to have a relationship with them growing up. The eldest daughter went no contact with them when she reached her 30s, and my brother tried to strong-arm her back into the family fold because his now ex-wife was making his life a living nightmare, and he just wanted her off his back. The eldest daughter, who was the scapegoat of this family, ended up leaving the family, and when they finally turned on the golden child, she woke up and she left too. And that was when my brother finally saw the light and divorced this woman. The eldest daughter found out, so me, my sisters, and our kids and her cousins on Facebook all developed a relationship with her. She's been in therapy and has come a long way, but that poor girl is still so traumatized. She even qualifies for a service dog. It was so bad. Ever since my brother has finally woken up and realized we aren't the villains his ex made us out to be, he wants to recover the family that he's lost. His daughter wants nothing to do with him ever again, and I don't blame her. I told him I understand that he was a victim of a narcissist, but he had a responsibility to protect his child, and he failed miserably. He threw his child under the bus to keep a woman in his bed, and I told him that I'm disgusted with him for that, and I'm horrified that he treated his daughter so badly for years, despite being brainwashed by his ex-wife. I told him we would be willing to reconnect with some ground rules set in place. For starters, his daughter wants nothing to do with him, so he cannot ask us to encourage reconciliation on his behalf because we will not. These are literally the consequences of his actions. And secondly, she gets first choice of family events. He can only come if she is not there. Now, I thought this was a reasonable compromise, but my niece is so upset. She's saying that if we have anything at all to do with him, she will go no contact with all of us, and that these rules aren't good enough. Now, I hate what he did to her, but he too was a victim, and he is my brother, and I don't want to have to choose, and I think I've made very reasonable compromises, but she's giving me an ultimatum. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Okay, so in my opinion, you definitely can reach out to your brother, but there's probably going to be consequences that come along with it. Like, she absolutely was really treated horribly. She had no love in her life when she lived with her dad and her mom, and things are so bad that she literally needs a service dog just to function. So I can confidently say that she has every right to be upset with you right now. She thought she could trust you. She thought she was away from her crazy father, and she thought she was finally free of that garbage. But here you are welcoming him back into your life, even though you know of all the terrible things that happened to her. Like, in my opinion, it just doesn't seem like a good idea, and I think this is only going to cause a rift in the family. You will literally drive this lady away, and she probably will never come back. And sure, your brother's the victim of a narcissist, but guess what? He was an adult making conscious choices. This guy knew what he was doing, and he did it anyways. So in my opinion, you have got to weigh all the options here, because this is a very sketchy situation that you're trying to navigate. Am I the jerk for asking my sister-in-law to return a gift that she gave me that I blatantly did not ask for on my list? Because right now, I'm seriously not sure what to do. Here's what happened. I'm a 36-year-old female, and I had a birthday a few weeks ago. For context, I am fortunate enough to be doing well enough with work that I'm pretty comfortable money-wise, and I just don't really need anything. However, I had several friends and family members that still wanted to give me gifts, so I made a small list of ideas with some items ranging from $10 to $60, thinking that the higher items would be picked up by people like my parents or my husband, who are also doing fine. Well, enter my sister-in-law. I'll be honest, we aren't that close. She is not doing very well, and she is living from paycheck to paycheck. She frequently buys loads of stuff from places like Temu because it's cheap, but not because she necessarily needs it. Inconsiderate may not be a 100% fair description of her as a gifter, because she's often in the right category. Like, if one of the kids is into art, she will get them one of their art kits, but it's gonna be the cheapest one that she can possibly find, where all the paints and markers are dried out before you even open it. Lots of gifts like that, where it's the cheapest possible version of what you might have wanted, or used items when not appropriate. Now, used books are awesome, but less so as used makeup. The family has tried suggesting to her a few times that if she really wants to spend $10 on us, we would all really prefer to get one $10 item instead of 10 $1 items, as the stuff she gives often doesn't work or otherwise just becomes a burden to have to try and throw away or even recycle. Anyways, I didn't realize she had gotten a hold of my birthday wish list until a gift arrived arrived in the mail, and it was a very cheap massager. For context, I have horrific chronic pain, and I go to a massage therapist frequently, and I had even put gift cards to my massage therapist on the list. I already have a nice massager too, by the way, so there's no need for one that doesn't seem like it would work that long. So I thanked my sister-in-law for the thought, but asked if they might be able to return it, as I already had one, and I said that she really didn't need to get me something. I said I appreciated the sentiment, but I would prefer if they kept their money for themselves. Well, my sister-in-law got very defensive, saying that she got me something from the list, and that I was a jerk for rejecting her gift. I said I already had a massager that suited my needs well, and she said that I was a snob because not everyone could afford the exact things on my list. I had not been expecting anything from her, but I had tried to provide ideas at several price points, as there are a couple of other people in the family with tight budgets who still insisted on getting something. I reiterated that I was happy to get birthday wishes from her, but she did not need to feel obligated to get me anything, and I would prefer that she use that money for herself. She then called me ungrateful and then just hung up. Now, my husband understands, but says I probably should have just accepted the gift and either tossed it quietly or given it away or something like that. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? Honestly, I can kind of see both sides of this. I can understand that you're kind of sick of getting cheap stuff all the time from your sister-in-law, but also I do kind of feel like maybe this was like the wrong time to do this. Maybe she really did come from a good place where she's like, okay, I'll get you a massager or something like that. I don't think it was like a vindictive way of like giving you a gift, but also I don't think it was the most thought out gift either. It definitely felt like it was like, all right, whatever, here's a massager, go for it. But maybe also like that's all she could afford. I feel like there's a lot of nuance here that we can't quite completely understand. So I don't think you're totally the jerk, but I can say confidently that the timing of all of this is really wrong. I think this should have been done in a different way and in a different setting, especially considering that gifts were kind of expected for your birthday. And hopefully with some time, things can repair in the future, because from the sounds of it, it kind of seems like this was a sore subject that was gonna come up pretty much regardless. Am I the jerk for not wanting my sister to live with me, all because she's not willing to do the things that my current roommate is actively doing? Here's what happened. So I'm a 30-year-old male and I live with my best friend, and I pay all of our bills. Now, as an important point of context, my best friend is gay, and he was exposed by a cousin to the family while finishing college, and his parents simply stopped helping and disowned him. He went into a deep depression where he had to stop working and take a break from college because he was having such a hard time. He helped me with what he had saved, and when everything was done, he said he would leave because he couldn't help anymore, and at the time, I was already working and had a good salary. I told him to relax and that I managed the bills, and since then, we've had this arrangement for 3 years. My best friend has developed health problems that make it difficult for him to get a job. During this time, he, of his own free will, started taking care of the house and making our food, saying that it was his way of giving back for everything that I do. He even jokes that he's a stay-at-home friend, and I don't mind paying for everything. The problem is that my mother doesn't have such a good financial situation, and when my sister was accepted to college in my city, she called me with my sister telling me the news, and asked me if she could live with me, and she said that she wouldn't be able to help much with the bills. Well, I responded by saying that there is no space at home because I live with my best friend. She then asked if I could help with the bills when she lives in my city, and I replied that I couldn't do that. I already have my own responsibilities, and I could not commit to helping with that as well. She then finally realized that my best friend living with me is the same friend that I help pay the bills for, and then asked me if I still support this friend, and I said yes, but he helped me with many other things. She then exploded on me, saying that I wanted to support a 27-year-old guy, but I couldn't even help my sister who needs help in college. Now, I jokingly asked if my sister would agree to take care of the house, make our food, and help me with other things in exchange for having everything paid for by me, and she replied that she was not my maid. So I responded by saying that I prefer my best friend, because this 27-year-old dude is actually helpful. I hung up before I heard any more garbage, and since then, I've been bombarded with messages from them saying that my sister wouldn't have time to be my maid because she's too busy studying, and that it was unfair to ask her to do the same as someone who doesn't do anything all day. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? No, you are definitely not the jerk. Your family's out of line and your sister sounds obnoxious. Like if I was in your shoes, I would pick my best friend in this scenario over my sister any day. She's not gonna pay for anything in the house. She expects you to pay for all the bills and everything, and she's not gonna help out around the house at all. That sounds really annoying, and I would not want to put up with that either. Also, your best friend is literally doing the best they can. For some additional context, the original poster states that their friend is getting a graduate degree and they're looking forward to a new job. So it really looks like he's getting all of his ducks in a row, and it's not like he's just lazy not doing anything all day. Because if anything, the sister would be the one who's going to be lazy, all the while expecting you to pay for everything in her life. And I know if I was in your shoes, I would not want to try and bankroll another adult in my life. So no, you are definitely not the jerk. I think you have every right to keep your friend over your sister, and I know if I was in your shoes, I would make the same decision every single time. Am I the jerk for proving to my boyfriend that the nerds never cared about the popular kids in high school? Because right now, I really think I shattered his heart, and at this point, I seriously don't know what to do. Here's what happened. So my boyfriend and I are both 25 years old, and we went to the same high school. My boyfriend was talking about our high school days, and he thought the high school version of me would have been thrilled to date the popular guy because I was a nerd. Now, again, we're 25 years old, and it's 2024. Now, I played along for a bit until I realized he wasn't joking. He literally thought that, but I told him that I didn't even know he existed. He was surprised and said that he was a popular kid. He played football and was in the popular crowd, and he even said that I must have been lying. I told him that the nerds never cared about the popular kids in high school because we were fiercely competing amongst ourselves for college admissions. For a backstory on our town, my boyfriend was born and raised there, but I only moved there when I was 13 along with a bunch of other high-achieving kids. That's because an engineering company opened up a branch near that town and brought in a ton of engineers and their families. So it was a sleepy town with a big high school that suddenly got a ton of competitive kids, and I mean insanely competitive. Nobody had time to think about popular kids or really anything but college admissions. I was only getting 4 or 5 hours of sleep a night regularly, and sports like football or cheerleading, which required 5 days a week of training at school, were out of the question. And I saw the same people regularly because we were all in the same classes. So all of the drama was contained within that group of 50 to 100 students or so. And honestly, it paid off for me. I got into a top college and had no student loans. It was literally cheaper than any other state school. And I have to say that I do have a good job and I enjoy it. And in response, my boyfriend said that I'm lying. But you know what? I don't like being called a liar. So I literally reached out to all of my high school nerd friends, and wouldn't you guess it, they didn't know the popular group and the ins and outs of the dynamics like my boyfriend thought. A few people recognized some names, but like I said, we were really focused on competing with each other. He then got quiet when I proved my case. He said I humiliated him, and I proved my point and we should never mention high school ever again. Well, I talked to his sister, and she said that high school was a special experience for him, and I just ruined his memories. So honestly, am I the jerk in this situation? What should I do? I don't think you're the jerk, and honestly, I think it's really unhealthy for high school to be like your peak in life. Like, I don't want to say this guy peaked in high school, but it kind of seems like it. There is so much more in life than what you did in high school, and in the grand scheme of things, it holds so much less weight than you really think it does. Like, I know for myself, I am much different than what I was in high school, and that really is a good thing. I can't imagine living my life and somehow think that my life peaked in high school. Like, that would be terrible. Now, don't get me wrong, it really is cool to have awesome achievements from high school, but if those are your only achievements, then that really is not good in my opinion. Like, what have you done after high school? You had to have done something else, right? Like having a good job or getting a degree or some kind of accomplishment. Like, something else has to have stuck out in the future, right? I can also say that if your boyfriend is upset about you proving him wrong, then it literally is his own fault. Like, if he didn't want to be proven wrong, then he shouldn't have chased down this route so heavily. Like, he straight up called her a liar for not knowing anything about him in high school, which, by the way, I kind of relate with the original poster for calling themselves a nerd, because I know for a fact I couldn't name a single person on the football team to this day from my high school days. So no, I do not think the original poster is a jerk in the slightest. I think their boyfriend was being obnoxious for pursuing this point so heavily, and if they didn't want to get offended, then they shouldn't have gone so hard at their girlfriend. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. To finish listening to all the stories, check out the playlist at the top of the description. And if you want some chill music to put on in the background, check out easymode.com. If you like Am I the Jerk, subscribe to Am I the Genius. Everything will be linked down below in the description.